Hello, and welcome to the Game Informer Show. I'm your host, Andy McNamara, and today I have a panel of some really accomplished, amazing people. Yes. I'm lying. I'm starting this whole thing off lying. I've got Joe. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Hello, Joe Juba. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course.
Double fake out on the intro.
I like how I have contempt from Joe already, but I normally have some contempt from Joe anyway.
That's just my default.
It's
his default.
That's where it goes.
Resting
Brian
contempt
Shea.
face.
Brian Shea,
Hello.
how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. And Dan, the Jacket Tack.
It's great to be here.
You know, I love that the jacket is kind of stuck a little bit. People have been using it when they send me emails.
You know, I started when it started. I kind of ran away from it, but hey, now that we're here, let's just go with it.
Yeah,
Can't fight who you are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad.
It's
I'm
true.
glad
You
you're
really
leaning
can.
in. And Silver.
You can and
today.
should
I'm
fight who you are.
What I amount to is apparently a piece of clothing, so that's great.
No,
I like
I'm just. It gives you a persona.
Yeah.
I hate that stupid jacket.
Do you?
Well,
Joe and I finally came to the same conclusion.
there's a new one next time, Joe. So don't worry.
You
it
may like
changes.
the next one.
Oh, I'm sure I will. Yeah, that'll be much better.
Dan's got silver on today. And by the way, I think that you hate it is another reason that he should continue to wear the jacket. I love that. I think that's a pro in the column, not a con.
All right.
And Alex Stadnick is in the booth, in the box. What's up?
Hello, friends. I hope all is well.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So we were just asking before we started. We were like, this is episode 486. So we've got 400. We're getting close to 500.
That's
which
wild.
Which is kind of crazy. And we'll do absolutely nothing special for 500. So
I was going to ask.
Don't you worry about
What's the big 500
Don't you
blowout?
worry about it.
We gonna do the 500 greatest games of all time?
No.
my God.
No, we will not. No, we will not.
I have an idea. Let's talk about a couple games that came out that week and then answer some questions from the community.
Joe, that's brilliant.
Hey.
Wow,
good.
Joe, sometimes you knock it out of the park.
All right. Well, I expect a
Full of
raise for that
surprises.
good idea.
So, oddly enough, this week we're going to talk about some games and answer some questions from the community.
What?
Whoa! But today's we actually with this group we have a lot of games to talk about, which it kind of felt like we were in a rut of no games, which I know is so weird because we play games all the time. You're like, no game came out this week. Disaster, you know what I mean? Or no game that I was thinking of because games come out every week. But I mean, it's kind of funny that we felt like there was this minor moment where like games had disappeared from the planet, which is totally not true.
Especially when you consider most people out there who do not live in this bubble of being concerned about what game came out last week and next week and that just having that bubble move along with them. I think most people are still playing the good stuff that came out in October, November of last year.
100%. And one of the things I got when I was looking through the emails from the community, a lot of people were like, I got a lot that were like, I'm playing Witcher 3 right now. Have you guys been playing Witcher 3? That the show had obviously brought a lot of people back. And it also brought back, a lot of people asked that same question, which was like, I played it the first time, and I got 30 hours in, and then I bounced off for whatever reason, which we all encounter. You're just like, something happens, squirrel, you just change direction. And they were like, I don't know how I bounced off. This is the greatest game ever. There were a lot of those in the inbox, which I thought was pretty funny.
Well, I think in addition to the show, the new Switch version.
Absolutely changing for a lot of
in
people.
the show.
Yeah.
And being able to take it with you changes a lot. And that's another comment that's pretty consistent. Even though there are some negatives to the Switch version, they're like, this is pretty good.
It's Witcher 3.
It gets most of everything you want in there. So there's some, obviously some little technical glitches here and there, but I think people are very pleased with it.
Yeah, playing on the Joy-Cons doesn't feel amazing, but it's just Witcher on the go. That's all you can ask for.
Are you playing it, Alex?
I am. Yeah, I haven't got too far. I think Dragon Quest XI is taking up most of my time on Switch right now, but I beat the Griffin. I'm traveling right now.
You're doing it.
Yeah.
It's early game, but-
I got the itch to play Witcher as well, only I was like,
The Itcher.
the Itcher.
The Itcher.
I was like, I'm going to go and finally play Witcher 2 because it's backward compatible on Xbox One.
Oh, yeah.
And I started it and I'm like, I think I'm just going to go play Witcher 3 again
Yep.
instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did that too when I beat Witcher originally, and I was like, this combat doesn't feel as great, and I don't know if this is for me, which sucks because I've heard that game is great story-wise.
Yeah. I'll just watch a video.
So the main games we're going to cover today, I just want to give you a little play-by-play ahead of time. We're going to talk about Kentucky Route Zero. We're going to talk about Legends of Runeterra, Disintegration, Journey to the Savage Planet, and a little bit of Warcraft Reforged. And so let's start with something that I think we want to make sure we're clear on. Sometimes when we talk about games, we never say anything. And I know that sounds crazy when I say that. And that we do that because we're trying so hard to not spoil anything. Like, we think that's really important for people. Like, we want, we want people to be able to walk in and experience something fresh. I even get mad when someone's like, "There's a thing in that movie. I'm like, why did you even say that? Now I'm going to be sitting there watching this movie going like, when does that thing happen?"
Yeah.
So I'm definitely, like, spoilers drive me a little crazy, but I want to bring up here, we're going to talk about Kentucky Route Zero, but we want to talk about it in a context where we're going to have to say some things that are going to do the, like, a thing is going to happen, and you could be annoyed by it. So we have a handy list at the bottom that lets you jump from game to game and move forward in the podcast if you want to, because we're going to talk about Kentucky Route Zero, which I started playing yesterday, and I'm only like to Chapter 3. So I'm putting myself in danger here as well as we talk to Joe about this.
I was going to say I may need to leave the room for this if that's okay. I'll just leave it on the 2-shot and it'll be fine.
But that we want people to know, and we're not going to try to, we're not spoiling anything big.
I'm not going out there, I'm not going to deliberately go and ruin stuff. It just feels like to have a meaningful conversation and talk about really what makes this game interesting. It can't be the thing that we sometimes do, which is like, well, we're just going to keep the conversation restricted to the first episode and extrapolate from there.
Yeah, and I think for people that are on the fence, this is a better conversation to have. While it may contain some things that explain that spoil the game in a sense, like, or I should say maybe like give it some direction. That understanding its direction, especially for me, like when I first saw Kentucky Route Zero, every time I've tried to play it, I've been like, speaking about games you bounced off of, I bounced off this game I think a couple times already. Was that I'm like, where is this going? What is this doing? You have a lot of those questions at the beginning of the game. So hang around maybe if you dare, but I don't think we're going to ruin things too badly. But we just want to make sure that you won't go in with a clean slate if someone really wants that clean slate. So jump forward otherwise and join us for the rest of the game talk. But let's talk about Kentucky Route Zero. You just reviewed it.
I did. It came out yesterday. Well, what's the way to say it? Tuesday, yeah. It came out, and this is coming out after years. It's been a years-long process.
The first
to get
game
this
I looked
out.
it up online was January 2014, I believe, or 2013 or 2013.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crowdfunded way back in 2011. And and even then, the pitch video had a very different like visual style to it and all that stuff. So, and it's funny too because if you like, this is a game that I heard people talking about, so would periodically like check in on over the years, and I just remember it's sort of a roller coaster of like, hey, we're gonna release all the episodes within the course of a year. Or then it became like, well, they're going to be a little bit longer between them. And it ended up being like several years between them with these.
Several years. 2013 to 2020 is 7 years.
Yeah. But
I mean that's
like,
a lot.
Yeah, but
Between the individual
several years
okay.
even between like individual
gotcha.
episodes. And they put out these interludes that kind of link the main acts. So it's a 5-act game with sort of interludes between the big points.
Yeah, which I forgot all that stuff when I sat down to play it yesterday, and I was like, what is this? And how is this like completely disconnected? And like it is interesting, like once you kind of like wrap your head around them, the way they're weaving them in.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And so this is a game that in one way or another has been a sort of sporadic part of gaming conversation for almost a decade.
And it's done a thing that we try not to do, which is that it's like been on people's like games of the year list, and even I think some games of the decade list. When it wasn't finished, right? That we always try to avoid. But there are people who loved this game so much that they were like, no matter what, this is like the best game that came out this year, and it would just be a chapter, which is one of those things that like for Kentucky Route Zero for me has been like I have to play this game because for no other reason I need to be able to argue with these people.
Yeah.
Right.
So a little background is that this when you start this game, it seems like a traditional point-and-click adventure, sort of inspired by those old like LucasArts or Sierra things. It seems to have that format where the first screen you're on is like a gas station. You've got a little guy and you like click around and he walks around. There's a guy sitting down that you can talk to. It seems like, it uses a vocabulary that is similar to you if you have played adventure games.
Yes.
But then what quickly becomes apparent about it is that even if it gets its way in with those familiar trappings, it starts to diverge and sort of flower in ways that you do not expect. It quickly turns into some like surreal subject matter. For instance, the
Because
title,
those old adventure games never got surreal.
well, no, but I mean, in this case in particular, it's little. I see people will reference like Twin Peaks in connection to this game a
Yeah.
lot, which I get. It's an easy shorthand for saying this game has some like weird meta stuff going on. But
And
like,
plays around with like Americana kind of lore.
yeah,
Right.
but it doesn't have like when someone says Twin Peaks to me, it has a very definite. In addition to the weirdness, I think about like the detective story. I think about the sort of the small town charm stuff going
Gotcha,
on.
okay,
and,
yeah.
You know, and like this isn't that. It's a lot more Black Lodge Twin Peaks than it is Who Killed Laura Palmer Twin Peaks.
Gotcha.
But I think it's, even though it does like turn into some of that weird stuff, it ends up being almost like a meditation on all of these kinds. Oh, meditation isn't quite the weird word either. But it just becomes this landscape that's dotted with all of these bizarre and fascinating and sometimes like heartbreaking moments that the game really manages to handle with very little.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I've noticed, once again, I'm not as far as you, and I'm going to continue to play and try to finish this
Yeah.
weekend. I mean, the thing that I noticed was that, you know, when you talk about Kentucky Route Zero, one of the things it does do is like when you're in an area, you're definitely in that kind of point and click. Those are your interactions,
Yeah.
you know, at a basic level. But you get on the road, and you can move around on the road. And one of the things I think it explores is the fact that, I don't know if anyone's ever gone on a road trip. I know I have. The weird things you see on a road trip,
Yeah.
right? Like you one of the things that you start to connect, you're like, why is there a weird dinosaur park on the side of the road? Okay, weird. There's like go-kart racing out here in the middle of nowhere, right? And I think Kentucky Route Zero definitely has that kind of discussion when they'll say like, hey, take a right-hand turn at this weird thing, and you go like, what is going on in this world as those locations start to grow and be a thing? And it's even things like, there's a forest. And you're like, oh, it's a forest. I understand what a forest is. And then you're like, I don't understand what a forest is, right?
Yeah.
And so it has that weird road trip, I don't know, like kind of euphoria and lost and confused that comes along with it.
Yep.
And the road is like, you're looking for the zero.
Yeah. So the title Kentucky Route Zero is like referencing this weird extra dimensional highway that
Correct.
essentially like takes you from from the real world or the above ground to this kind of, I don't know, like extra planar below ground kind of thing that doesn't like obey the typical laws of direction or space. So it's the kind of thing where once you get on the zero, it seems like it's just a loop. But in order to get to where you need to go, you want to like travel clockwise until you hit one landmark. And then when you hit the landmark, turn around and travel counterclockwise, and then it's going to be right there.
Are there like objects of power? Like, are we going to the astral plane in this?
I think control's an interesting kind of like thing to talk about, just because you brought up objects of power,
Yeah,
which is the thing in
yeah.
Control, is that I think it doesn't necessarily have that feeling, but I think it does have when you go, like, they'll be like, hey, I need you to go to the bureau of this.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, I'm just going to go to like the library or like any object. And I'm making things up to try to hide them a little bit. But any object you would go to or place you'd go to in this world, you go to it and it's all askew. Right,
Yeah.
like everything, and I think that's one of the things that's the line that I've noticed too is that the writing and the way that you talk to things in the game, like even your dog. Let's talk about your dog. Like you
Yeah.
come up and you talk to your dog, which you get to name, and so
But you have
two choices.
You have two choices.
It
yeah.
does, but I mean, you do get to. Those are the interesting things about the choices. You're like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, how's it going, Blue? How's it going, Lady? Or what? I don't remember what the other choice
Homer.
was. Homer.
Yeah,
you know, and
yeah.
so like you kind of get to name your dog through that conversation, the reverse conversation, and you find yourself in reverse conversations throughout the game, where you're talking to yourself through someone else in the room, and that's kind of, I think, where you try to just learn about people and places and the things on this journey.
Yeah.
Right. And so that I think is the part that's disconcerting, right? Is that you do find yourself having these conversations from the wrong direction and having to make these 3 or 4 different choices that you're not always sure what it is, and you're kind of telling the story through your choices.
Yeah, and that I think is one of the things that really sets this game apart. And for me, was probably the thing I liked the best about it is the way it approaches player choice. Because I think at this point we're conditioned in a game like this to be like, okay, if I choose this option, what does that do? What do I get for that?
Yeah.
And this isn't a game of like optimizing outcomes like that. You don't. Sometimes the choices you make, most times, are just a question of like coloring the mood of a scene rather than influencing its direction.
Yeah, it's like it sounds this. I'm super. By the way, I'm making this very simple as a kind of thing, but I would be talking to Joe, and kind of go along the lines of like, Joe is going to have a burrito for lunch. Joe is going to like hide in his office and work late. Mm-hmm. Right? You know what I mean? Which like colors like kind of like who I think Joe is, like the way what I think Joe as a person is, and you do that to your own character. You project those decisions, project who you think you are in this game. You know, that like maybe I think Joe is this like burrito eating crazy man,
Which is
right?
true,
Which
yeah.
is crazy.
I had lunch with him yesterday. I can confirm.
What gave you that idea, Andy?
Or that he's going to sit at his desk and work hard. That he's like, not that you don't work hard, but you know what I mean. That, like
That's less true.
but you know that you make those choices and you portray them on your character, and that's interesting. And that happens a lot, even in these kind of like interludes that happen. That you watch how the characters portray themselves through each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like, for example, there's a part where, like, you're bringing a TV to someone to get it, like, set up. And there's an option that's sort of like, hey, do you know what you're doing? Do you even watch TV? And you have some options that are like, well, something, I forget the first one. Something about, like, well, my mom didn't want me watching too much TV. Or then it's like, well, Dad thought TVs were radioactive.
Yeah.
And then the third option is just like, look, I know how to set up a TV, okay?
Yeah.
And the game doesn't necessarily respond in big ways to which one of those you choose, except like Andy was saying, through just this really smart, atmospheric, well-done writing, you make your choice, and then it builds on that option. Because it's not always just dialogue. Sometimes you're just sort of steering a bit of the narrative. And it just, the writing expands on that in ways that feel just like a natural extension of the story, to the point where it's like, you feel like, well, I'm glad I didn't choose those other things because this feels like the right thing. This feels like the thing that was meant to slide in
The right
here.
thing for me.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
The right thing for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that part of it is really impressive in the way that it lets, it kind of makes you a participant in a story in a way that you don't see happen very often in games.
Yes, and so the two other things that I thought were interesting and worth discussing here was that it does a great job of using camera and music and weaving those things, those kind of classic tools to make a video game into pushing that mood and that narrative onto you, and that feeling of like being lost, that feeling of what's going on here. All those things are done through the narrative, certainly, but I think they're reinforced so well, and that's why this is if we talk about art, why Kentucky Route Zero is a good piece of art, is that it uses its tools at its disposal to make things feel out of sorts.
Yeah. I mean, like there's that scene in the forest you
Yeah.
were talking about. Like, there's a forest scene in the second episode that you're really, gameplay wise, you're just running from left to right through an area, but because of what they do with the camera and the trees and this.
And the narrative, and there's like a band, and like this is the thing, like they have things where just this weird band shows up and starts playing, like kind of like and just like they're just like they add a weird soundtrack, but they're part of the world.
Yeah.
And you're like, why are they here? Why are they not here? Am I here? Right? I mean, it starts to make you ask questions about what the world's doing.
Yeah, it's got this weird sort of ethereal bluegrass kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, it does.
It's real cool.
And then finally, one last thing, because we don't want to go and think, but one of the things I did love was there were a couple places where I would drive my car to them, and I'd be like, "Oh, I'm going to hop out. I'm going to see this world, and it's going to, I'm going to interact with it, and it's going to be the way everything else is." And every once in a while, you stop at one, and it's just Zork.
Yeah. Yep.
And I was like, I love this. I think this is awesome. That I just have these old school, just dialogue-driven interactions of the place, which are, you're standing next to a mailbox. It is pitch black. Like they just describe the place to you, and your imagination gets to run. So you get to see these crazy places, but then you also get to imagine some places, which I love the way that it lets you add your imagination to this world.
And that's something that is more persistent in the early acts of the game, because I feel like as the game goes on,
They get a bigger budget.
I don't know if it's a bigger budget. Maybe they just take more time, but
They certainly did a lot of that.
those little scenes become things that they explore those kinds of things more in those interludes between acts, or in the game, doing more scenes that are just unconventional or like very short, or like they tend to surprise you more with gameplay, like bring those surprises and strange kind of one-off moments to you more naturally rather than just through text. But I also like the way they do it through the text.
I liked it through text. So really cool game. You gave it an 8.5.
Yeah. And
People
again,
are giving it 10s, Joe. You hate the game. Why do you hate the
I know,
game? You hate the game so much.
I really enjoyed it, and I think a lot of this, for a game like this that is so narrative driven, I think a lot of it just has to do with the degree to which you
Connect with it?
connect with that
Yeah.
story. And I mean, I really enjoyed the story, but I think there are some people who really enjoy that story.
Yeah.
And you, the viewers and listeners, might be one of those people.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that one of the things I would point out is that I think it's a really great like kind of point and click adventure game that a lot of times, like one of the scary things with point and click adventure games, I just want to point this out, is that a lot of times you're like, I don't want to get to the part where I have to like figure out where the key and like I have to eat the pie first and like scratch my head while doing this thing. That like they always have these kind of like convoluted solutions in point and click games. It's like a kind of a From the long lost LucasArts days, that was like one of the things. Always
Yeah.
make these puzzles that are like kind of impossible. This is not a game about impossible tasks that you cannot overcome. They want you to play this game. They want you to explore this game, and they want you to finish this game. There are things that can be a little tricky, but they tend to be around perspective and like the way you're thinking things through and kind of traveling down around the road. But I mean, even like if you get lost on the road, I think little Z's show up in the gun. They'll be like, "Hey, you look tired. I'll drive for you," and like they'll take you to where you gotta go.
Yeah.
So this is meant to be an experience.
Yeah.
So don't let any of the old school point and click things drive you away from it. It's a narrative that they want you to finish. It's more like a choose your own adventure book that you're gonna finish.
Yeah, that's a good way to frame it. It's not a game of obstacles. I think if to boil it all down in the sort of like short description is like this is more of a piece of interactive art that gives you a sort of expanding in a fascinating way look at this strange world. It's almost dreamlike in its logic, and gives you a cast of characters and circumstances that are sort of vaguely defined, but they let you connect with them in the way that Andy was saying, by you sort of like project your vision onto them. And it uses that to deal with a variety of interesting themes, like debt is one of the things that it's dealing with, and like anyway,
Education. There's a lot of things.
And
Yeah,
community.
there's-
It hits on a lot of interesting points, and I think is ultimately it walks in a compelling line between tragedy and hope.
Yeah.
So that's my short recommendation of it.
As someone who was on the fence about this game, I think you guys did an awesome job of not spoiling too much. I'm excited to check it out.
Yeah.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so hopefully people that stuck in there, we don't want to spoil anything, but we did want to discuss it in a way that I think that was like relevant.
Yeah.
And so hopefully that was helpful to you. let's talk about the game that I'm most confused of on this list, which is Legends of Runeterra, which is not the first, because there was obviously the auto battler.
There was team fight tactics. Yeah,
Team fight tactics. But
That's a name of a real game?
it is the name of a real game.
But this is the continued path of League of Legends expanding as a game universe. But it is built on the League of Legends franchise.
Correct.
And it is a card game, so a digital collectible card game that just came out, right?
Yep, on Thursday it went into no wipe open beta. So for all practical purposes, this is a soft launch.
I mean, yeah, considering that, like, I think Fortnite's still in beta or whatever.
Yeah,
I think, you know what I
exactly,
mean? Like,
exactly.
this can be in beta forever at this point.
But when you say no wipe, that means that like anything you buy, any
right.
progress you make, these are all things you retain.
You can buy things in the store.
Okay.
You can everything you get, you're keeping on your account. No, nothing's getting wiped. So like, yeah, it's essentially a launch, just with the caveat that it's open beta.
Gotcha.
It'll go live when it goes into. It'll hit mobile this year as well.
Yeah, and so it's just PC now?
Yes.
Okay. And so this is it's a very busy collectible kind of digital card game market, right? You would say there's
Absolutely.
a lot there are a lot out there. And this fits in that classic realm of you get cards, you play, they interact on a board. And you have health and you die.
Yeah, that about sums it up.
Yeah, or you don't, or you have health and you win, right? Yeah.
And there's a couple other cards that actually let you have other win conditions, which are one of the coolest things of the game. So if you play League of Legends, you'll know that all the characters are like from different faction areas, right? So they've done a really great job, I think, before we even get into the gameplay, they've done a really great job at capturing the characters from League and their sort of what they are in their cards. And they have like a level up mechanic. So it's all based on champions from League of Legends. So when they level up, like you fulfill a condition, and each champion has a different condition. Like if you're Teemo, a super annoying hero in League of Legends that everybody hates, he's this little cute little Yordle thing that hides in bushes and shoots poison darts and lays mushrooms down. The mushrooms are like landmines. And you walk into a bush trying to chase him, and you'll hit like 5 mines and blow up. So in the card game, he's represented like every time he hits your opponent, he's very stealthy, so he can get by enemy lines, and he hits the opponent's deck, and he dumps a bunch of mushrooms in there. And the mushrooms eventually overpower and take over the whole deck. So every time they draw a card, they have risk blowing themselves up on mushrooms.
So is this very similar to like the class system in Hearthstone? That there's just more classes?
It is not similar to that. It's sort of similar to the color system in Magic, if I have to make a one-to-one comparison, in that you're playing a color, it has these different options within its wheelhouse. So like if I'm playing a Teemo deck, it's going to look different than, say, a Jinx deck, who comes from the same faction as Teemo. Jinx is a rocket launcher wielding woman who is,
Say no more.
into anarchy and chaos.
Yeah.
So with her, to get her to transform and flip over to her big side, you have to empty your entire hand. So basically, you just want to blast everything out of your hand, flip her over, and then she'll start getting free rockets that blow up every turn, and that's how you win with her. But the deck that facilitates Teemo and the deck that facilitates Jinx are going to be very different experiences.
This sounds hard to balance. Is that a challenge right now in the current game?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're only like a weekend, but
Yeah.
the metagame. Okay, so this one is very unique in the metagame because no one can get all the cards yet. So you can't just say I've solved the game because I have everything. If you do want to buy cards, there is a limit on how much you can buy a week. So nobody has everything yet.
Gotcha. And so there's also, when you talk about the champions in the game, the legends, there's 100 and something in League.
They're not all in the game
Okay,
yet.
yeah.
But that the philosophy is, as new factions are discovered, they'll all come with a different champion wheel set. So like whatever you like to play. You like to play control, you like to play aggressive, your play style will be represented in one of these factions. Sort of like the color wheel in Magic, but there's a lot more variability within each color faction in this game.
I want to know what monetization's like. You talk about buying cards.
Certainly. So monetization is limited to a certain amount a week. Again, you can't buy in. There's no packs to purchase. But you can buy individual cards. So if I want to make a Teemo deck, hypothetically.
Yeah.
I'm going to need 3 Teemos for that. 3 is the maximum amount of card you can get in any deck. Champions are the most expensive cards. And you can buy 3 champions a week, tops. That's it.
How much does a champion cost?
I think it's like $3.
Is it free to play?
It is free to
otherwise?
play, and there is progression tracks. I think it's very reasonable to play this game for free.
Okay.
Now, but if you want to do something specific right away without earning anything, like if you go into the game and be like, I want to play my Vladimir deck right now. I need 3 Vladimirs. All right, you can do that.
I just think back to something. Was it Artifact that had that just had that terrible pricing structure out of the gate?
Rest in peace, Artifact. Yes, so Artifact was an actual purchasable game, and every card had a value. it was The theory was that like the marketplace would determine the value of the cards, and everything was on an open market, and Steam took a very minute cut of every one of those trades. What a great plan. But Artifact, again, some of the ideas from Artifact are in this game. Like, so if I have to distill this to, in simple terms, it's a combination of Magic the Gathering, Artifact, Gwent, and Hearthstone.
That's very simple.
I mean, totally simple.
So if you're a master of all those games.
That.
All right, hang on. You've played Hearthstone, right?
Take every game ever made.
So it's a game really about timing. That's the thing. That's the big element of the game. That's where a ton of the strategy comes in.
You see a lot of people passing when they're playing.
When you do things is far more important than what you're doing. It's not just sitting there and playing stuff on curve. Like, all right, turn 1, I play a 1 mana. Turn 2, I play a 2 mana. Turn 3, it's all about what happens and when it happens. Like, okay, say it's turn 6, and I have a giant 6 mana creature in hand that's really powerful, but my opponent only has 3 creatures on the board and I've got 5. So before I play that creature, I'm going to attack. Because every time you do something, your opponent can do something. Mm-hmm. So if I play that big 6 mana creature, maybe my opponent has a spell in his hand that blows up the whole board. And there goes my whole plan. That goes,
Yeah.
Forget that. So if I attack immediately, that gives him he only has few things to respond with. He'll have to use what he's got on the board. Mm-hmm. If I play the creature, then sure, I'll have a lot more oomph to attack with when I get around to it, but that gives him a chance to put his own thing down, whatever that is.
Do you get to see those cards that you played before you make your play?
See the cards that you played?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, can I see that someone played a really, early in the round, someone played a big card? Do I get to see it so I can make a play? Or
You can track what's been played.
Okay.
So it's basically action, reaction, back and forth until each round ends. There are no, turns. But whether you're the attacker or the defending player does change, and that makes a huge element. That's part of the timing.
But a defender, I see what the cards the attacker has played first before I play my hand.
You can see everything on the opponent's side of the board and everything on your side of the board. But this game, unlike Hearthstone, has instant effects. So a lot of things happen in combat. So my unit's attacking your unit. I've got a cool spell in hand. Boom. All right, I'm going to win the battle that I should have lost and maybe swing the game. So the timing considerations, like the scenario I described earlier where I play a big creature and attack, the way that I want to make that big creature go, ideally, is I plop him down at the end of my opponent's attack phase. That way when it swings back to my attack phase, you go back and forth attack phases.
Gotcha.
So as soon as my attack phase begins, my guy's already on the board and ready to rock and ready to go in before anything can happen.
This sounds like a game you will love.
It sounds...
And do you love it?
It sounds complicated, but I will also consider it accessible. Yes, so far I'm really enjoying it. It has a draft mode, in any of the card games I play, the mode I most like, I don't really like constructed play, which is building the best deck and bringing it into the meta and climbing the ladder. Mm-hmm. What I like more than that is the limited forms of play. Sealed deck, draft, those kind of experiences. And this game has the most accessible form of draft I think I've seen in a CCG because things are divided by packs. So if you're familiar with the Hearthstone single-player content, which I know none of you guys are, things are divided into packs.
Now.
We're not alone.
I know, but I'm trying to put some context on here. So instead of drafting one card at a time, like you would in another draft and then passing and drafting another one, this one you draft a champion and complementary cards. It's okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to make a deck full of Poros, which are these cute little adorable League of Legends creatures? And they all sort of morph together to make one big giant ball of death.
Yes, I want to do that.
Yep. So then you pick the fluff and tuft pick. They're organized by titles. There's little titles and little descriptions like if you want to play control the board, if you want to play super hyper aggressive, it gives you that context so you're not in the dark well, I'm not looking at a tier list and I don't know which one of these cards to take. What do you like to play today? That's basically what it is. All right, well, I want to play just really aggressive and get in there. So I'll play these noxious characters who are all about aggression, and that's my strategy. Just get in there and kill them fast.
So are the cards, are they generally are they all general use, or is there a set that's specific to your champion?
So you are limited to playing the cards within your faction.
Okay.
That's it. There's no neutral cards or artifacts or anything like that in Magic, and you can only play normally 2 factions at a time. And this game, like I said, it was all about timing. So right under the timing element, all about synergy, comboing everything together, making things work together in interesting ways.
And having it play, obviously, as you mentioned earlier, having it play through multiple rounds.
Yeah,
you're trying to set up.
It's really satisfying when you execute, you're okay, I need to keep 4 exact mana in my pool so I can cast this spell that will return a creature to his hand because I'm predicting he has a giant creature on his side of the table that has overwhelm, which means damage will go through my blocker, and he's going to just buff that guy up and try to one-hit kill me this turn. So I'm going to let him dedicate all those resources on that. He's going to swing at me, and then boom, I'm ready with this card. And you can get these really cool like spell chains going on. So
kind of back and forth.
because it's similar to Magic, where like, all right, I lightning bolt your creature, I counterspell that. Well, I counterspell the counterspell. All right, well then I return the creature to my hand. So you have these like chains of effects going off that swing the tide of the game, and they're really interesting to play out. Especially when you have, like start getting into the game, like a weekend, I'm starting to learn exactly like what does it mean if my opponent is playing this Shadow Islands and has 9 mana. That means he's got Ruination and can potentially blow up the whole board anytime. So I have to be careful playing around that.
So besides having a pretty mediocre name,
The name is an abomination. I have no idea. This is like the most generic thing ever.
We're trying to make Runeterra a household name.
it seems to like it hasn't really resonated. At least I haven't seen it like climb up like as far as a lot of people playing it. Do you think they're kind of slow rolling it out a little bit? It just doesn't seem like it's resonating very quickly.
It's tough to beat. Like CCGs, like MMOs, are like this is well-established territory with lots of big players already. But you know, the league stuff is. I don't know if they're going to track the league audience in this game, but it definitely. Card players I know are enjoying it. There's a lot there. It needs to be expanded upon. We've only got one set, so we have to compare it to things that have like a billion sets.
Yeah.
And have had many years of functionality added and mechanics and campaign and all this other junk. But
and people already invested in them, obviously.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That's interesting. Well, thanks for trying to explain it to us dummies.
I really hope that like if you do like League, especially give it a try, because one of the coolest things is like the animations and sound effects and music and stuff when you do those twists are like, oh man, my Zed just transformed. It's really badass. It captures that magic. Whether or not you like the gameplay of attacking each other with numbers, right?
Yeah.
They do a great job at getting that flavor essence out of those League characters.
That's awesome. All right, so let's try to pick up the pace maybe a little bit, and let's
wink, wink.
Card games.
Let's talk about another kind of definitely a genre to some degree, and that's in Disintegration.
Yeah, something us dummies can talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, well, like before earlier, if you eat the pie, you lose King's Quest V. So, you actually just lose the game if you eat that pie. So
yes, reference that I totally understand.
So Disintegration came out this week. Well, it had a technical beta this week, and then I think they're going to move into perhaps maybe a little bit more open beta because it was closed, right? It's closed right now.
Invite only.
Yeah.
It's going to be open by like end of this week.
Into this week.
It was the 31st, I believe, through like the 3rd or the 4th. I can look
So
it
it'd be
up,
all
but
weekend.
Yeah.
But we got into the technical beta early. They were very nice. Got us a bunch of code. So it's V1 Interactive, which is a developer that's got some people from the Bungie space in it. A lot of the designs you can see like in the first passing of it, you're like, oh, cool. Like, you know, another space game. You know, we got some helmet guys. We got some ships. This is going to be cool. And then yesterday, I think I went in a little blind. I was like, hey, I want to check this out. Let's see what this is all about. And I hopped in. I know Brian played as well. Alex, you played some.
I did.
Dan or Joe? Probably.
yeah, I watched. I watched Alex play some, and that was enough for me.
Yeah, I watched the GI live stream of it yesterday.
So,
Which is now archived, and you can go watch.
you can go watch. The funny thing for me is I kind of went in a little blind. I had just seen the art style, the kind of backstory. I was like, oh, cool, let's check this out. I sit down, and the first thing you get into is it starts you in the training. Like that's the first thing you do when you don't get a choice. I was like, is this all it is? And then I was like, I'm in this grab cycle. This is a flying game. This is a flying game, and all of a sudden it was like, here you need to do stuff with like strategy stuff from like kind of from space. Choose where you send guys and do things. I'm like, this is a flying strategy game. Wait, what is going on here?
Yeah.
And so I was kind of thrown off through the whole. I was like, when do I shoot stuff? Which, by the way, I just sound like the most. Like just basic
Are you a gamer?
I know. But I definitely, that was the path I went down. I was like, I thought I was going to get like cool space guns and shoot space aliens. And then when I was in this grab cycle, flying around, doing strategy stuff, I'm like, I've been fooled. What was like, and then you get through that, and then you go to like the multiplayer experiences. But I was definitely like thrown off by that as like thing. And because I'd like to point this out. I'm slightly mocking this game at the moment, but I want to be very clear. That's because I am the worst virtual pilot in the history of virtual pilots. If you add flying to a game, even in like Dead Space, when they did the you had to do the cannon part where I just had to shoot things coming at me.
Oh yeah, no one was good at that in Dead Space.
I was like, I hate you so much for this.
Yeah.
Because it feels to me like flying or any flying level, it's just the worst thing ever. So I'm coming from this, when they surprise me with this is a flying game, I'm like, I'm out. Because that's not a genre for me. That's the one genre I kind of just don't want anything to do. I do kind of some Star Fox a little bit.
Okay.
But that's the extent. Even though I want to
of
love
barrel rolls.
X-Wing, TIE Fighter or something like that, it's just, I'm not good at it.
Right.
I understand what makes it appealing, but I'm not good at it.
You need space guns you can hold in your hands, not space guns mounted to a ship.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
The spatial thing throws me
It
off.
is different, yeah, because it does feel very floaty. There's a difference in momentum when you're going left to right or forward and back. And also it adds that extra dimension of going. It's like left bumper if you're using a controller to go up or left trigger to go down, which also throws the entire rest of the control scheme out of whack. I'm so used to zooming in with left trigger, but now it's back to the right stick, which feels very 2002.
Yeah.
So the thing about I didn't play, but like I said, I watched some of it, and the thing that stood out to me, this game makes a bad first impression in the sense that you are scrolling through these available teams that you can choose or something, and it is the weirdest mishmash of artistic ideas in one place. It's
samurai.
yeah, it's okay,
Clown.
Let's
yeah,
just
it's
hit every single
here's
box.
a clown. Here's neon with a biker helmet. Here's actual knights, straight up, out of medieval time, knight in.
But
in
they're
shining
robot
armor.
knights.
I guess
They're all
That's-
robots.
It sounds cool, verbally. Now in execution.
See,
is different,
I
but
would
it's-
argue I don't know that it sounds cool because there's someone you're oh, that guy's totally from Twisted Metal. That you look at everything and they come from a genre and it's a genre mix, right? Which I guess maybe to someone feels great, but I was in this I'm going to this crazy space future. Okay, wait, I'm a knight in a junkyard?
And now I'm and now I'm some samurai or it seems like those teams are an array of different options that they could take for the whole game, and
sure.
instead of picking one, they just put a bunch of different ones in.
Well, for me too, because I didn't mind the kooky characters as much, but then the world doesn't really lend itself to them. It doesn't feel like these fit. They're just caricatures, which is weird because if you read the description of the story, it's war between people and people who've decided to become robots. And I was like, how does this fit in, especially with the landscapes? I want to focus on the positives more, but yeah, it felt weird.
And then you control robots, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
you're like a samurai controlling space robot, which I guess is
You're an integrated, which means you're a human brain put into a robot's body.
Yeah.
okay.
So you're a robot.
a robot
for all intents
samurai.
and purposes.
Hey, you know what? On paper, this sounds awesome to me.
Oh boy. Okay. So, but that was my impression. But from watching the stream, it seems like the gunplay, the actual battles, are pretty. It seems like they control pretty well. That there's pretty fun.
I mean, they again, because you're flying instead of being on the ground and running around, it controls very different, and you have to get the hang of that. But once you do, there were some pretty intense battles that I had, and I liked that, trying to choose your class, because every class that you brought up with the different visual designs also have different weapons, different specials, and different minions. So you had mentioned how there's a strategy element of telling these guys where to go. That's because you're flying around above the battlefield, and then you have, I think it's a squad of 3 or 4 minions that run around and
Depends on your class.
Yeah, they'll help you.
They'll do objectives.
Complete objectives. You
yeah.
can direct them all right, attack this guy. So that was often what I would do is I'd get into a firefight with on a control point. So there were 2 modes that they let us play in the beta, which there was retrieval, where you're one team's trying to grab these cores that are in different spots and bring them to an extraction point, while the other team defends.
Yeah.
And then there's zone control, which is exactly what it sounds. It's just like a domination mode.
Yeah.
But those modes are good because it gives you center points where everybody's going to be meeting, and there's going to be a lot of action,
And gives you an opportunity to flank and do some other strategies.
for sure. Yeah, there's
that
different lanes
need.
you can
Yeah.
take. But what I liked about the minions is I could get into these intense firefights. It's usually a 1v1 firefight, because anytime the odds are not in your favor, you're just destroyed.
Yeah.
So if you get into a 2v1, there's little chance for you to overcome, even if you're really good.
Well,
but
I mean, maybe if you're really good. But yeah.
but
Little chance for you to overcome.
I don't think anybody's very
No,
good at this
I'm
game
sorry.
yet.
I was not good enough, that's for sure.
So,
That was a bad one.
but what I liked is I've eventually developed this strategy of, all right, well, now that I have like this extra element of the shooter where there's the minions below me that I can direct, I would get an enemy down to like very little health, and then I would immediately move on. I would like have them set the target for my minions on that guy, and then move on to the next guy for myself. And then they would just clean up the mess more or less because the enemy was still focused on me. They would ignore my minions, and the minions would shoot their rockets or their guns at him and kind of like finish them off while I was already moving
You were
on
the
to the next guy.
distraction, yeah.
So that was kind of a strategy I started developing, and it seemed to work pretty well. And that's something you couldn't really do in other shooting games.
Yeah. I will say though, I think people are billing this as an RTS mixed with an FPS, and I really feel like it's more of first-person shooter focus.
Yeah.
Like the minions obviously play a role. I think would you say it's zone control? I think you can only control the zone if your minions are inside of it. But overall, I didn't feel like they impacted the game enough to lean into those RTS elements. They're very sparse, and I think it is a first-person shooter first and foremost.
Yeah, it feels like a 90-10 split between the two genres.
Yeah.
A big part of this game, I remember, part of the discussion around it is it's got some old Bungie talent on it. How, like, if you like Halo, how familiar does this experience feel?
Not at all. I mean, aside from the fact that it's a shooter, but like, it doesn't really feel similar to Halo in any way, I would say.
Yeah, it feels more like Twisted Metal. You know what I mean? It feels more like a car game. You know what I mean? Like a combat vehicle game than I would say that.
Yeah.
I mean, even though it's a first-person shooter, it's a vehicle game.
Yeah.
At least currently, which is interesting when you think about the campaign, which we haven't seen yet. You know, that I assume this same design and control scheme, which I think you're right, does work well enough for, flight, combat, and all those kind of things, and doing these strategy things. It's a pretty inventive control scheme overall to get all those things done. But like how that's going to play out in the combat or the campaign is going to be interesting, I guess, to see like what that does and what makes that world like someone said, it feels like we're kind of going backwards. Like we maybe should have seen the campaign and been like, oh, cool, there's this added thing of like the world where I can do these things in multiplayer.
Yeah.
And now we're looking at multiplayer and kind of going like, I don't get it. To a lot of ways, like how the world all fits together, which I assume campaign perhaps maybe smooths over, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's a weird. It's a technical beta, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And they definitely needed it. I know on Xbox I had a hell of a time trying to log in or not even log in, but play. The servers were super laggy. And in the moments that it was working, I felt like it controlled pretty well. Like I think the comparison to it being Halo is like the through line of it controls well, but the online servers definitely needed some work. Shay, I think you had a little bit better experience than I did. But
Yeah, it was really rough at first, and then I put it down for like 2 or 3 hours, and I came back later in the day, and it was like, all right, this is still kind of rough, but it's playable now.
Yeah.
And it is also a technical beta.
Correct.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the entire point of this. They want you to kind of break the game so they can fix it
For
before
sure.
launch.
And PC ran smooth. I never really saw a hiccup while we were playing it on stream. So
Yeah, I think it's a smaller team. I did think at least
30 people.
The arenas looked, they weren't impressive. It wasn't impressive visually to me. Like even given the amount of people, and I hate to diss on small teams or anything like that, but there were just a lot of things that just like when I looked at the art of the game, I put a picture in my head and just it felt like a lot of it just didn't match up.
Yeah.
But
It's not a bad looking game. It's just, it's perfectly fine.
perfectly fine. Yes. Which hopefully and that's the thing is. My opinion on this probably means nothing because I'm not that flight person. If there's someone out there who's really into the vehicle combat and like what that has to do and like the adding strategy may mean something more to them, I'd love to hear someone who's really like into it and like what makes this current beta special.
Yeah.
Right? Because I do think it is not a game for everyone, but I do feel like there's someone out there that's going to really like be like, this is my jam.
Yeah, for
kind
sure.
of thing. Like Dan with his card games.
And it's
Come
distinct
on.
enough. It's distinct enough as well from pretty much any other like major game on the market, like major shooter, where I don't think it'll fall prey to something that like Lawbreakers fell prey to, where it was like, oh, this is just like worse Overwatch.
Yeah, it's not following any trends. It's living on its own. I would definitely say if you're into shooters, like give it a try this weekend. But I think it's shooter first, if that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for deep strategy, you're not going to get it here.
Vehicle shooter.
Yes.
I'd like to add that in there.
Yes.
Vehicle shooter.
Vehicle shooter.
Vehicle shooter. Because I'm into shooters,
Yeah.
and I am not into vehicle shooters, and it didn't.
Hovercraft shooter is, I think, a more apt way to put it.
Hovercraft's
Yeah.
a vehicle.
But I do think that they handle those pieces well. I think the flying feels good and the shooting feels good.
So you
check
guys
it out.
sound more positive on it than me.
I'm overall positive. Yeah, like I
overall-
share some of the concerns that you do, but overall, I liked it.
Yeah, I think it's doing something a little bit more unique, and I'm curious to see where they go with it because I don't think they've
That's
released
not positive
it on
or negative. That's saying it's unique, and I'm interested to see more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems like a good stance to take for a beta.
Okay. All right. Joe's defending you. We'll go with that.
We're not reviewing it, Andy.
I know. Hey, you know what? If you go do beta in the world of betas, in the world of like of putting your game out for the world to see, I'm sorry. I get it. It's not a review, but you're going to get critique, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm not trying to be mean spirited, but like you're going to get feedback, and that is my feedback.
I mean, that's what they want ultimately.
Yeah, so
That's fair.
And so I hope that defines what they make, but they don't have to make the game for me. Make the game, you know what I mean?
Suddenly they release
yeah,
the next
like
beta
that's
and
okay.
it's
Like
a boots
not
on the
every game
ground.
is for every single person in the world, right?
Disintegration, Andy McNamara edition. No
Yeah.
grab cycles.
You're playing the minions on the ground. Now the grab cycles are AI.
Yeah.
But,
Totally change it, yeah.
that's just the world we live in. So it is what it is. So let's do a quick one up on Reforged came out this week,
It did. Just came out.
which we had done on our cover. And we were excited because we were like, "This is a classic."
Warcraft 3.
Warcraft 3 is I mean, it's a top 50, and I'm giving a pretty wide thing because I think for some people it'd be even higher, like game of all time kind of thing.
Sure.
Top 100. I mean, it's up there, right? It's considered a classic.
For some, it's like the best RTS. It's in the top 3 for sure, like depending on your taste. But
And
it's
this
an
is the
incredible game, even outside of an RTS.
And this is the game where Defense of the Ancients was born.
That's right.
This is a game that's influential beyond itself, right? That it came on and spawned a basically, maybe you could even say esports. I mean, it's a game that changed a lot. Let's say.
Sure.
But we didn't put Reforged on our cover because it's a prettier version of an old game.
Which Dan, how is it now
Well,
that it's out?
Let's give some context here. I'm only like 2 hours in, so
Yeah.
I got a long way to go. We are going to review this, and but like I said, I'm very early on. I am not noticing a whole. There's not a whole lot different than the original.
It just feels
play
like a
experience.
kind of like a better looking version, runs on modern machines
yeah and
version of that original game.
And depending on what you're getting into it for, that's probably not what you're signing up for. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
Because the team, I mean, this isn't like a surprise or anything, but during the course of development, the team walked back on some of the changes that in our cover story they'd said they were going to make, right?
That's right. Yeah, and that was they've been clear about that over the last year. It doesn't make it any better when you go in and you're like, yeah, this is a great game. It's got some new assets. I mean, that's my take. A couple hours in, I am told that some of the missions do have alterations, and there's some new map considerations to take care of further down the campaign. So.
And they said they'd made some story changes too at some point.
Those they've walked back as far as I know. I haven't seen them yet, but like that, all the messaging that they've put out up until release has been, we were walking back that sort of tied in to fit
The current
canonical considerations of World of Warcraft. Yeah.
Which it's tough to argue. You know what I mean? Like, it's got to be hard to to rebuild a classic like that. Do you know what I mean? And then try to be bold and make changes. And then, I mean, we all know Reddit's will be mad about any
sure.
change. Like I made this change. Like, why did you make that change? Like every change you make is dangerous. I was excited to see that they were going to try to take more chances with it, right, than just reskinning it. But I understand how that can be a challenge and scary as a developer.
I guess for me, as a player, the question then becomes like, well, that game still exists. Warcraft 3 still exists. Like, why re-release it if you're not going to, make the experience fresh for someone who's revisiting it.
Well, I think for one, getting it into a modern I can get it off the battle.net. Do you know what I mean? Makes things a lot easier. You know what I mean? Like yes, it just I think putting it into those things helps. I think you could get Warcraft 3 to work, but it was but it was like the old 4x3, right?
You can get it to work on a modern rig. It's not it's not too difficult, but
I mean,
you want it there with the rest of your games, and you can just click the button.
And you got a mount in World of Warcraft, which that sold a lot of units right there.
Yes.
I mean, because the game was $30.
I think it's 40.
Is it 40?
I believe so.
Do you have that mount, Andy?
I do.
I don't.
Is
By
it
the
cool?
way,
Is it worth it?
You know what? This is a WoW mount. I use most mounts because I'm very particular about what mounts I want to really use in the game. I have rules that I have established over years that they have to follow.
I feel like this is a whole other segment that we should dive into.
And
Andy's a mount collector.
And this mount, I like to get it and get in it and go, cool, and like hit the special action and then never use it again. And I've bought mounts that I have done that with, by the way, that I have used once and been like, cool, I'm never using that. And to answer your question, Joe, because I know you're dying to know, I want them to be small enough to fit through a door.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And fly at the same time.
Okay.
So, mounts, I have a ground mount that I love that I'd use all the time, but you need a flying mount once they kind of reintroduce flying to the game.
Yeah.
And I want it to be kind of small. So, I like things that are like a fox or a tiger, like a classic just kind of thing, because they tend to be small.
But they don't fly.
They do in World of Warcraft. They'll add wings to. They have a pig that flies. I mean, they like everything. Okay. They just introduced a mouse that can fly, a rat that can fly. I mean, they have. You can get animals that fly, and some grow wings, and I kind of hate it when they grow wings. Usually, you know what I mean, unless they're well done, kind of dragon wings on a fox or something like that. It depends, but I really want them to be small. That's the most important thing. Is that I want them to be small. So they're easy to fit through and fly through doorways when I need them to do that. And that's really what it comes down to for me. Because there's cool dragons. I have a ton of cool dragons that I'm like, that's an amazing dragon. I'll never use it.
But they still fit.
They're too big. They're so annoying to be.
They fit through the doors, but you just don't like the way they clip through them and stuff?
No,
you can't see when you're
you can't see. And in some doors, it dismounts you, and I want to fly in and get that moment.
Yeah.
Where
Okay.
where the server hasn't caught up, and I get to go further in. It's just a question of movement for me.
So what's your go-to? What is the mount you've spent the most hours on?
See, this thing is I never remember any of the nouns in World of Warcraft, so I couldn't name any of them.
Can you describe one?
What does it look like?
I can describe. Okay, one of the ones I actually made a fake account to get the Cinder mount. That's it's a fire horse that's it's a horse that's on fire.
Okay.
Gotcha.
That's one of my favorites,
Stands
right?
for reason.
Like that's a good one. But I had to make a fake account. I still have that fake account so I could recruit a friend. I recruited myself, by the way.
You're not the only one who's done that. No, that's
It's a thing. I had a friend of mine. They did a new recruiter friend thing where there was a bunch of rewards again.
Yeah.
And then they apparently there was a deal which I was kind of mad at him because I guess they were selling subscriptions for $7 or $20 or something like that for 2-week period, and he made 12 accounts that he recruited himself 12 times to get all the recruited friend items.
Yeah.
Which of course, that's the thing is going to World of Warcraft going to be like, our sub numbers are back to 8 million. I'm like, it's my friend. It's 2 million of them, right? He recruited himself that many times. But I mean, you can do that. And so I did that to get this one mount. And by the way, because all the check marks, right? And it looked cool. It was on fire. It's a horse on fire, right? Like that's a good one. Another one I like. There's this.
What have you done, Joe?
What a
I
wild
love it.
inside
No, this
baseball
is
conversation.
No, I love
This is
it. I love
crazy.
it.
So the other ones I use, there's it's a purchase mount, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically it's a weird futuristic tiger that flies, that changes colors. It was part of a pack. I liked it. It looks good. It kind of changes color, which I'm into, but it fits the rules in that it fits through. And by the way, my friends in game make fun of me for these rules too. They'll be like, "That's a neat mount. You'll never use it." I'm like, "I'm never going to use it." I try to get Invincible. I've been trying to farm Invincible. I can't get Invincible to drop. Invincible fits those rules. I would ride.
What's
the
Invincible?
drop rate isn't that bad. I could get it if you really wanted it.
I've been trying. It's so bad. But he's basically he's a horse with wings. Do you know what I mean? It all fits down to horse, tiger, fox. Some kind of animal that's small that can fly.
Okay.
right?
You know how everyone is like, where do Pokemon go when you put them in the PC or whatever? I wonder where your mounts go when you like aren't using them. Do you have like a Noah's Ark of mounts?
I mean, you have a big list, and I have ones in there that I try to use every once in a while. I mean, there are those utilitarian. Like there's mounts that have utility.
Yeah.
That like you can like sell things from. They're going to get rid of the AH one at the end of this expansion, so I need to collect 5 million gold before it because I want to buy it before it goes away. But that thing is a giant Brontosaurus, which is
It takes
unusable.
up the entire screen.
It's unusable. But it has that on it, right?
I want the giant Brontosaurus to sprout tiny little wings, and then it can fly too.
That would be hilarious.
That'd be wonderful.
Though you can actually block people from like seeing things with the Brontosaurus. You just park it in front of like a flight point. People can't get to it.
Yeah, I mean, they eventually added the technology to have no mount zones.
Yeah.
Because people used to go take the biggest mount, and then like there's different things you can find in the game that would make you bigger, and then they'd go park their biggest mounts all on top of these things. It's World of Warcraft. There's all
thing.
kinds of craziness that goes on.
But
So Warcraft 3.
Just to go back, it is 30. I checked.
It
in
is
the
30,
interim.
yeah,
It's 30.
it
The
is
special
30.
edition with the mount is 40.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. So and mounts from Warcraft cost like $25 from the store when they're not on sale.
Some of
So it's not that much more. You get a classic. I mean, I'm interested to play it.
I am
interested
too.
to play it again.
Like I said, it's still early on, but like just looking through it, like it is awesome to be like, wow, I really understand how World of Warcraft came out of this game, and I totally get like how this is an amazing RTS. And I went back to the custom maps thing, which is where I spent thousands of hours back in the Dota days. And all the I was like, wow, the stuff I was playing back in college is still there. Like, Battleship's still getting played. You still got like Final Fantasy Dota, DBZ Dota, like just different stupid versions of anything you can. Like, Angel Arena, all these weird maps like Castle Fight, Footman Wars, all that fun stuff in custom games is still there.
That's cool.
With is the assets enough to merit this? I'm not certain. We'll get into that after a ways down the line here.
They didn't just do assets, but they also moved it to a more modern like platform, so they can add more things and do more things to it as well, right? Like,
Yeah, that's
Hopefully.
theoretically that was the goal. I don't know how
Yeah.
in execution how things actually turned out.
As somebody who never played Warcraft 3, would I like this reforged version?
Good question.
Even if you don't like RTSs, it's an incredible RTS. It has a great
Passing
story.
interest in RTSs.
It's got like a great story campaign. It's sort of an RPG as a campaign. I
Interesting.
mean, I'd say it depends what you like to do. If you just like to goof off in custom maps, like that is what I like to do. Because I played probably a couple hundred hours of Warcraft 3, like in multiplayer and campaign and everything when it came out. But I spent literally thousands in those custom map games. There's so much
Wow.
fun junk in there, like just maps that people would make. Now, whether that scene crops up again, I don't believe it can happen. But if it does, like that's where Dota came from. That's where so many other like cool all those old tower defenses that are now their own games, like on Steam. Those were created there. Like that was just a hotbed of creativity that is awesome to just dig through.
So let's move on to our final game in this long run. Like this is a huge run of games that
Really
we've been
doing it.
discussing
We've had for
here.
a while.
And we talked about mounts for way too long.
That was the best. That was the
That's
best
my
discussion.
favorite part so
that was
far.
the best discussion we've ever had on the podcast.
Is Journey to the Savage Planet. Is it the? No, Journey to
Journey
Savage.
to the Savage Planet.
To the Savage Planet, which is from Typhoon Studios, which is since or before the game came out got purchased by Stadia.
Yeah,
It's
no.
now.
Apparently, this will be their last multi-platform game, which is weird because it seems like it's getting some traction now.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's see that. I'm sure they own the IP, which we had Alex Hutchinson on the show here before. We interviewed him, and it was great to have him on. And I actually sent him a little note. I was like, that was fast, because he was like an independent studio, and he's like talking about how he wanted to be an independent studio, and then joined Google. So I gave him a little grief that way. But I'm excited for them, excited for the studio. One of the things he talked about when he was here was that they were a small team, like we talked about for Disintegration, so they had to make decisions, right, to like how they were going to make it and how they're going to do it. And one of the things they focused on with this game is that it's kind of a they wanted to use comedy to kind of as part of their story and the way that they kind of went through things. So Brian, you reviewed it for us.
I did.
Can you tell us a little bit about Journey to the Savage?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a big open first-person exploration game. A lot of people say, oh, this looks like No Man's Sky, and I would say that's a somewhat apt comparison. But
On a
it's
scale of 1 to 10, how No Man's Sky is Journey to the Savage Planet?
like a 5 or 6.
I was gonna
You
say
get
4,
resources and
Yeah,
some other
you
things.
go around, you scan environments and creatures, and you get resources. You go back and to your ship and you craft new things to use in the environment. But like most of it is traversal. There's a lot more combat in this though, which is good and bad. It's a lot more action oriented than a No Man's Sky game is, but
And it's not procedural, which I think
it's not. No, it's all handcrafted.
And if you're looking for like a more guided or like just totally go out on your own and do your own thing, this is not that. This is definitely more structured.
But there is a lot of exploration. Like there's a lot of secrets. There's a lot of collectibles. There's side quests that you can do. But basically the gist of the story is you're a member of the fourth best space exploration company. And you land on this planet and you're going out on a mission to see if
Spacer's Choice.
there is a lot of there are some elements in terms of like the humor that you could draw some parallels to Outer Worlds for sure.
100%.
It's all like biting satire on capitalism and corporations. So you get a lot of that, just like you did with Outer Worlds. But anyway, your entire mission is to go to this planet in the remote corner of the galaxy and determine if it's suitable for human life. You're trying to expand out to different planets, humanity is, and you're assigned to this planet. I think it's like AR-286. So it's like a super unassuming
That's what
name.
I thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, I knew you were going to guess that one, so I wanted to get it out of the way first. But you get there, and it's like, oh, there's a giant spire in the middle of this planet that's like all like technology, and I guess there's like an advanced civilization here somewhere, but like there's no sign of this civilization anywhere. It's just all this wildlife. So
Except the giant technospire.
Exactly, but you don't see any like advanced creatures around the planet.
Yeah.
So like that becomes a secondary mission to like exploring the planet and like determining the viability for humanity is like, oh, what the hell is that giant spire in the middle of this planet? And that as you explore more of what that is, which is one of your primary missions, it becomes more and more interesting. And I don't want to spoil anything, but you learn more about the planet. You learn more about like what led to the current situation on the planet, and like you can uncover. That's one of the side quests is like you find these alien tablets around the planet, and you can like watch short videos that like they had created and like learn like what the aliens were doing before you arrived. And then there's also like previous explorers who you can find logs and like pick up on like what previous explorers have found about the planet. So there's a lot of lore to dig into as well, which is I appreciate. And it is really fun to explore this planet. There's a lot of fun secrets. There's a lot of fun like things to see. There's interesting creatures to fight.
Yeah,
and
I felt
kill.
like that was one of the highlights, at least from the demos that I had seen on the game. I have not played it yet. I wanted to get a chance to play it yesterday. I just ran out of time. But was that the creatures all seem to have like interesting interactions, right? And the plant life and things that were in that you found in the world you could use in different ways to accomplish different things. As far as like how you would beat them, like shoot them, like they had like kind of like, oh, this if you do this, you would open up a way to shoot them and kill them faster, kind of things. Like things that you can learn and start to use to your advantage.
And all the creatures drop resources, which then you can go back to your ship and craft a better thruster for your backpack, so you can do a double jump or a triple jump instead of a double jump.
And isn't there even like a quadruple jump?
There
at
is.
some
I had
point?
a quadruple jump by the time I beat the game. And it seems like the playtime is anywhere from like 10 to 20 hours, depending on what you how much stuff you do. When I rolled credits for the second time, because there's another mission of finding fuel around so you can get a return trip back home, because as a part of the fourth best space exploration corporation, they don't give you enough fuel to make it home to Earth. So that's another like primary objective, is finding fuel around the planet.
That's funny. I mean, I've seen a lot of people be very positive on this. Is like a lot of people are really enjoying it, and I think a lot of it comes down to like, is it the comedy that sets it apart, that kind of puts it to that next level, or
I think just the
it?
world. I think that going around this world is fun. I don't want to, because I'm a big fan of Breath of the Wild, and I like kind of like the explorative elements of that, like going around like, oh, let me go see what's on the other side of that hill. Oh, it's something cool. All right, this was worthwhile. I got a little bit of that, like to a lesser extent with this, where it's like, oh, let me see what happens if I go up there. Oh, there's this orange goo that'll give me better health and stamina. All right, that's awesome.
Is there like a Metroid element of?
There is.
A little bit, yeah.
So like, you as you progress through the story and like the side quests and everything, you unlock new areas that you can craft in the crafting tree. And then it's like, oh, now I can grapple like off these grapple points with this tether, the proton tether that I have. So it's like, oh, I bet if I go back to that area, there were those things I couldn't interact with before. I explored that area pretty thoroughly my first time through, but now I can reach those ledges up higher, and there's something else that I can find up there. So there is a little bit of that as well. And I mean, you also unlock like a boost jump that like you hold down, and instead of doing like the quadruple jump, it just like charges up your thrusters, and then you just like shoot up really high so you can reach new ledges and find new secrets.
And I think that's been the highlight for me in that game, because I'm about 4 hours into it, and when they open up that traversal system, I really started to click with me, even though the world was I was interested in the world, it wasn't fully grabbing me, but when you start to get that verticality, I feel like traversal, like platforming traversal, is hard to do in first-person shooters. It's not a shooter, but you know what I mean. And I think it does it really well, which I was definitely surprised about coming into it.
Yeah, some of the more like the trickier platforming sequences I did have a problem with, and like just by the nature of it being a first-person game, that your spatial awareness is like a little lacking compared to like
but it's
a
no
third
Turok,
person.
as far as I can. Yeah.
So it like there were times where it's like, oh, I'm gonna make this jump. Oh no, I didn't get
Yeah.
close enough to mantle up to it, or oh, I should have used another thruster. I didn't realize I was far enough away.
Something we haven't touched on yet is co-op.
Yeah, you can play
It
co-op
is?
with one other person online. You don't really play off of each other too much. Like you can't be like, hey, I'm gonna go up on that ledge. You like grab onto my hand and I'll pull you up. But like, it definitely is fun to run around and explore with a friend, and have an extra gun in like those battles that can be a pretty big help.
Well, it sounds like, especially too, because it seems to put a task ahead of you, and the fun of the game is going off the beaten path, which co-op definitely leads to like being stupid with your
Hey, what's
friends
over
and looking
here?
at you
Yeah.
and looking around. So I think that plays into that
For
part
sure.
of it.
The only criticism that I would say is like a big thing is the shooting feels a little floaty. Like it feels imprecise, and I was tuning it up and down with the sensitivity and everything. You can turn on aim assist, turn off aim assist, and it just never felt great. Like it's not like, oh, this game is horrible. It's impossible to shoot anything, but when there's a bunch of creatures that are like floating around up in the sky, and these like things that will circle you super fast, like almost like a cheetah, like it's really it can be really challenging to hit them.
Yeah, it's frustrating how imprecise it is when it requires some really precise shooting at times, like Shay said, with the floating. So that was my
But
only.
it's not like this is the main part of the game. I would still say is the exploration, but it's unavoidable if you're going to play the game that you're going to have to shoot some things pretty frequently.
And be slightly annoyed is going to be part of
Yeah.
that experience.
For sure.
Okay. All right. That's fair. Not every game can be Destiny.
Exactly. Like Destiny I think is always the gold standard for a gamepad shooter.
Yeah, I feel like it is as well. Well, thank you guys. We covered a lot of games. We covered a lot of
really
stuff.
did.
Yeah, we did.
I've been trying to not make super long podcasts, and we're making one
Let's call
right
this
here,
the-
right now.
Let's call this the 500th episode.
So when we come back, we are going to do community emails, which I think we have a lot of fun things to talk about. It will be the same cast of characters, so we're lucky to have them back. So join us in just a few minutes as we go through community emails. Hello, and welcome back to the Game Informer Show. I am your host, Andy McNamara. We're about to embark on the community emails, and I am joined by Joe Juba,
That's me.
Brian Shea,
Yep.
Dan Tack,
I'm back.
Jan the Jacket Tack.
All right, there we go.
Don't feed into it.
They started it. Feed into it. They started it.
I'm in on this, by the way, 100%. And Alex Stadnick is in the box.
Can we tease? Is there more jackets to come?
There always
There,
are more
there will
jackets
be
to
another
come, yeah.
jacket.
There will
there-
forever be another jacket.
There are a finite number of jackets in the universe.
Yeah.
That number is not
I don't know if
less
that's
than
true.
486 though.
What was the phrase from BioShock? There's always a man, a lighthouse, and a jacket, right?
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is what they say.
So before we head down this path, I did want to bring it up again that we introduced merch a while back. It's on our website. If you look on the side, you can go to Designed by Humans and see some Game Informer shirts if you're interested. I hate to be a pitch man or anything like that, but I think it's worth. We don't do a very good job of promoting it, and I want to make sure people that want a Game Informer shirt that I'm helping you get it. If you go like, Andy, you're stupid, and these are too expensive, I get it. Understand? That's fine. You know, but
But now that's your decision to make.
That's your decision to make. We made it possible for you to make that decision. Thank you, Joe. So I just want to throw that out there as a little reminder for anybody. If you're a fan, it's got like Replay and some other ones on there. If you're a fan of those particular shows,
Are there any jackets?
There's no jackets. There's a GI Show shirt.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm actually glad you mentioned it because now I'm gonna go get one. I totally forgot about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go get a Replay one.
You know, so I mean, like they're out there if you want them. You know,
Is there a suit jacket with our logos on it? Like just crazy put on there?
I mean, let's say there's options.
You're going to have to sew that one yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So our first question, I put this panel specifically together for this first question.
Uh-oh.
So, hey GI, my daughter is only a couple short years away from being old enough to play video games. Besides obviously making sure whatever she plays is age appropriate and not mobile BS. I'm not thinking a lot. I've been thinking a lot about what would be the best first game for her to be playing. The obvious choices like Mario Kart 8. My thought is the first Mario Brothers, but I can't tell if I'm putting too much importance on my own on nostalgia. Does this make me the old man we all knew growing up that insisted all music today is trash and they stopped making good music in 1978? What are your thoughts? What games do you think are best to introduce a small human to video games? Kevin from West Hartford, Connecticut. Like I said, there's not a father on this panel.
That's true.
And that's probably a good thing that we have not ruined the world. But Kevin is definitely out
wouldn't go
there
that
making
far.
the world a
Are
better
Are you
place.
saying our
Hard way.
seed would ruin the world?
No, I am maybe.
Thanks, boss.
You did notice I did look exactly at Joe as I said that. Joking around. This is a thing that actually a lot of my friends that I know have thought about this, and I thought that's why it's a great question. I know, like when Kyle was here, Kyle always commented on things like that, and I wish we had Cork on this particular panel because I know he'd been like, I let him play Diablo 4 and Mortal Kombat. Cork's out there as far as like what he chooses. I know in the past a lot of people I know have always picked that Mario Brothers game, but there is that kind of like, are you forcing your own nostalgia on someone else?
You absolutely are. If you make your daughter play the original Super Mario Brothers, you are that old guy who says new music today is crap and only old music is good.
I don't know if that's necessarily true because Super Mario Brothers is just the most basic way to introduce somebody to video games. Hey, you go from left to right in this genre. You hit this button, they jump. You hit this button, they throw a fireball.
I mean, certainly like
You
2D
pick
is
up
way
things.
easier. Like here's a 3D platformer. It's like 6,000 times more complicated than a 2D game. To Brian's point.
Yeah, I guess I feel like there are other games that still like the concept of going from left to right in a video game is not a hard thing. You don't need to play Super Mario Brothers to understand that, right?
But it introduces so many core components of gaming, though.
Yeah, but
Power-ups.
But it's just old. Things like made today control better, right? Like feel more responsive.
I don't know.
Better.
Those controls are pretty spot on Super Mario Brothers.
Okay. I guess like think of something like here's the example.
Give them
that,
Braid. Here, play Braid. It's your first game.
No, absolutely not. And what I'm saying is like I have a friend who has a young son who is autistic, and there's a game, and the kid's I think he's about 3, and they've been playing Order Up. Or wait, is that the right one?
Diner Dash?
No.
Delicious?
No, Order Up's the one I'm thinking of. That's the one where it's like you're a bunch of cooks and you're like moving around in the kitchen and a bunch of crazy stuff.
Overcooked?
Overcooked.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm thinking of. Yeah. Order Up is the Wii game. I like that one too. But he's playing Overcooked because it's simple in that you're moving around. The movement's easy to understand, but it also for them is good because it requires a level of communication.
Yeah.
That for his son is something that's been difficult.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
I think that
And you can work together.
yeah, you're working together, and I think that the inputs in a game like that are easy enough to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would
So-
also say that like he brought this up. He's like, oh, is this just the obvious choice? Mario Kart 8 is a very good choice for that because it's another thing where it's simple, and it also, I believe it has that like child mode or whatever where you won't like get turned around or anything. Like it'll keep you generally on the right path.
Yeah.
Like kind of like a training wheels type thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good choice. I mean, I'd like to defend like when I was a kid, my sister used to like play the Beatles and like the Beach Boys for me, and like at the time I was like, I didn't know, like what music was, right? And as you're defining those things, like for her to give me the Beach Boys and the Beatles as like, hey, here's a good introduction to like music that's like family friendly and fun. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's like those are like there's nothing wrong with classic choices or I get it. There's new music today that I love. By the way, I love new music. I'm not dissing on it, but it's nice to know your Led Zeppelin. It's nice to have that experience and understand that. And I don't think that's necessarily bad, especially before you define your own tastes, for a father or a mom or anyone to help to give them like, here's some things that I think are good that you might like.
Yeah, and I think I'm not trying to say that like Super Mario Brothers is a bad game or not worth playing, but I think that the idea of saying this is the one you should play first comes largely from like studying games as an almost academic pursuit rather than just like, hey, there's this whole world of interactive entertainment out there.
Yeah, there is.
Let's give you like a first step into that.
The one thing for me is that I almost feel like this is a weird question, but I'm going to extrapolate on it a little bit. Like if an alien race landed their ship on our planet and walked up and said, "We want to learn about your games. Show me your games," right? And like, of course, it would be like in like some like like they'd have like their own language, right?
Your aliens are definitely the giant heads from Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Show me what you got.
Like they have their own language. They wouldn't be speaking English, but you get my point.
I get you.
So that this happens, and what example do we as Earth give them? And I think that's why I think like kind of showing like a small human or an alien race. That's why I think like super, like it's got hidden stuff in it. It's got like, it's a great, simple explanation of what makes game great. Right?
You don't have to sit there and play it for hours and hours. Like you can just be like, hey, this is like the basic concept of a video game.
And also too, if it's hard, that's the thing about games is early on you have to learn that like you have to overcome things, right? Like that you get past World 1, that's easy, and that eventually World 8 is hard. Right? Maybe I'm overthinking.
I like the idea.
Maybe I'm defending it too much.
All of this to me, again, this is a game that for someone who wants to start, like someone who wants to play games, this has a place in it. But I feel like having it be the game that you introduce it to comes from more of a like, well, the aliens want to know which games we have that are good. This is a culturally significant thing. Versus when the alien
so you
comes,
give them Fortnite. You'd go, here's Fortnite.
Maybe
that's what you give them?
When the alien comes and says, what are your, like, when the alien comes and says, show me what your human achievement has attained through video games.
All right.
Then maybe you give them Mario because like that's a cultural thing. When the alien comes up and says, I don't know what video games are, how do they work? I don't know that Mario is the first game that you give them.
What about Dan? Do you give him Legends of Runeterra?
The aliens are the child. I think they're very.
These are different questions now.
I think they're very different worlds here. The aliens, God, I don't know what to give them.
You know,
Have I ruined poor Kevin's question? Probably.
I give the aliens like Diablo 2 or something.
Link to the Past?
Actually, well, it's just sure. I give them Link to the Past.
That's
a good one.
Yeah.
But for the kid, I think the best choice that I can come up with is Farm Together because that'll give them a chance to play together, and it's really cute and for kids. There's no fail states. It's a great immersive, interactive thing that you can play together.
Or even, what about something like Peggle?
Peggle's good. Peggle's cool.
Yeah.
Tetris.
Just not Peggle Blast.
Yeah, I go toward the Tetris more so than Mario. I know there's like this. You want to give the aliens Mario, fine, but the small human, I think the Tetris and other stuff like that, like that isn't just like jump on the Goomba, hit the blocks, and go to the right. Tetris is more spatial awareness kind of thing.
And like not what was the new Mario game?
Odyssey.
Like Odyssey, which is like a living cartoon. You would give them Super Mario Brothers on NES before the living cartoon.
I think there's a lot of moving parts in Odyssey. Not that it's a complex game,
it's
but
not
for
that
a
complex.
very first game ever,
I think it
might be
I think it'd be
overwhelming.
hard.
There's a lot of love here for the original Mario, and I get that. I don't think I'd.
There's also, I cannot remember that there's a bunch of like great like learning software out there that like teaches coding and a bunch of other stuff and math that I think are, not to be like weird. But I also think that I wish I would have spent more time with those as a kid than just going straight into games like
No,
I did.
Those games were awesome. Back
Yeah.
in like the Oregon Trail stuff that you could rescue.
Number muncher.
Rescue Learner. What was that game? You travel around the schoolhouse. I learned all my early vocabulary from that game. I forget the name of it, but it was an incredible game.
Treasure Math Storm.
It was made by the same people who did Treasure Mountain, which was an interesting combination of vocabulary and math learning. But this game was like you'd travel around to school, and there were like evil robots, and you'd have to like beat them by learning vocabulary words. It was an incredible game. I'm serious. This game is awesome.
I also enjoyed like a lot of, and I mean, I wouldn't recommend Kentucky Route Zero, but I mean, like, I like a lot of like point and clicks where you like that someone else can drive and you can tell the story together and kind of like turn them into storybooks. Do you know what I mean? I think are good first games too.
Yeah.
I think it's called Midnight Rescue.
It all depends on the age, but on some level, I think it comes down to like, don't underestimate your kids in terms of like what they can play. I think of what I was playing when I was young was definitely like I wasn't playing Reader Rabbit or whatever. Like the first games I was getting into, like I liked complicated games when I was young.
Yeah.
What was your first game you ever played?
I don't have a recollection of it, but I'm told that the first game I ever played was called Hunt the Wumpus.
Yeah, it's a classic.
Which is like an old, I think it's kind of like a grid where you determine like, you're given some clues and you're figuring out like where some monster is on it. I don't know.
Okay. You know, Pong,
Star Wars on the Atari.
Pac-Man.
That was
Pac-Man's a
real
good first
classic.
game, by the way.
Yeah, Pac-Man.
Pac-Man's a good first game.
Simple.
Yeah.
Miss Pac-Man, you choose either one. Like I guess follow their taste. Like you said, let them.
I mean,
we always make that joke around here where sometimes we're like, "Oh, that's a game. It's not very good. It's for kids." Which is like, why do we hate children so
Yeah.
much? Like, let them play good games. Like that is definitely a line around here that's been around for ages, and I stand with Joe on that one. So let's move on. So, hey, Game Informer crew, my name is Trevor, and I have a background in communications and home automation. So this guy knows what he's doing.
Okay.
As excited as I am with the next-gen consoles and new technology altogether, I just can't believe how much hype there is about 8K. We can't even get true 4K with the TVs available today. A high-quality HDMI can get close, but falls just short of what is needed. The only way to transmit data fast enough to ever think of pushing 8K would be fiber optic output-input. Currently,
boy.
TVs only have this option for audio, soundbars, etc. So my question is, will the next-generation consoles that are boasting 8K, that 8K come standards with a fiber optic output? Or will consoles that are boasting 8K come standard with a fiber optic output? Sorry, my reading skills. Apparently, I should have played more of those games as a child. If they do, then hopefully TVs will follow suit. I know this probably isn't something on everyone's mind, but 8K is probably being used as a buzzword more than anything, and I'm curious as to what you think about this. Guys, what do you think? I mean, 8K. Is it changing the world?
Of course,
No.
of course, it's a buzzword. I mean, obviously, is it going to happen during this cycle of consoles? Maybe, but right now it's just like hey, we got to have more K than the other guy.
Yeah, it's kind of like a thing of like this is how powerful our system is, not like this is something you'll definitely want to use. It's always just like this is so powerful it can achieve this. It's like cool.
Well-
and sorry, you go, Joe.
I was gonna say, like, it's being used to sell consoles, but it's also like it seems like every few years they need to manufacture something to sell TVs too, right?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, this TV is a smart TV. Now it's well, I guess a while back 3D TV, and now like
Oh
it's
God, I forgot about
Curved
those.
TVs.
yeah, you have to like refresh it to try and like
They're an industry that's trying to innovate and push those innovations
Yeah.
on people. I mean, I remember when it was like HD finally got out to enough people where like we were really getting HD signals in our home, and then they started immediately selling Ultra HD TVs at that time. You're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
great.
And it's no coincidence that Sony sells TVs and consoles and was behind the big 3D TV push, and a bunch of their PS3 games were also 3D supported.
Oh
right?
yeah,
I mean,
Shuya
like-
Yoshida specifically told me their entire 3D push was told to them by their parent company of Sony.
Yeah.
We want to push 3D TVs. You guys should do more 3D Sony PlayStation stuff.
So for me, I think all that comes around to the idea of like, are better visuals and stuff important? Can that have a big impact? Yes.
Yeah.
But are we at the place where it's like the industry is ready to move there in a like substantial and meaningful way? No.
Yeah. And I view it too as like I think there was a lot of people who kind of bristled at the idea that we had the one and the PS4 the mid console upgrade to 4K. I feel like this is partially insurance too, and saying like that we're future proofing your console so you don't have to get the mid cycle upgrade. Like this is going to be like one of the last pieces of hardware you get. But yeah, it's a buzzword. I know it's a different medium, but like I think they interviewed Christopher Nolan when they were doing filming Dunkirk, and he's like, we shoot in 6K. So if like some of these like top of the line directors in movies aren't doing it, like, you know, we have a long way to go before any of that's relevant in even this space.
Yeah.
First of all, thanks, Trevor, in Tennessee, who sent us the question, which I didn't read earlier. But I kind of agree in that it just annoys me in a lot of sense because, you know, I've mentioned this before, but I upgraded a PC recently and I was kind of excited about it, you know, and, you know, I had a 4K monitor and I was like, this is where I'm going to really like see all the benefits. And I didn't feel like the benefits were all that great. You know what I mean? I had like a top end card. I still have a top end card. You know, I could spend another like $800 to get another step up card on that, but that's a ridiculous price to pay to move forward with that. And quite honestly, the monitor space that I'm in is like they're moving towards like how fast is that monitor refreshing, not what the resolution of that monitor is.
Yeah.
And I want to see things like where things like ray tracing is happening real time and things like that, where it's kind of taking advantage and creating some more interesting graphical things in my game that I don't want to see I'm not interested in seeing them in 8K right now. I'm interested in seeing them in 4K right now, right?
Yeah.
Well,
and have a 4K monitor, by the way, too, that comes down in price, that increases in speed, that's reasonable, right? Like I think that's the touch point isn't like, can it do 8K? The question is, can we get it down to where for like $200 or $300, can you get a 4K monitor that runs at like at least 144 or even higher? We're pushing some serious speeds right now that would enable for a lot of people to get it and for games to take more advantage of it and make gaming better, not 4K to 8K, which at this point doesn't really mean anything, especially like when you said movies aren't going that way and other things like that.
And isn't there a whole thing about like it needs to be a monitor needs to be a certain size for 4K to even be like a meaningfully perceived by the eye?
I do think when you talk to someone who's like an audiophile, like obviously Trevor here is. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think when I was working on trying to find a TV and I was getting some help from a group and they were like, that TV's too big for this room. And I was like, shut up. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Like, I want the biggest TV I can put in this room. I don't care what the rules are, man. So there's certain things like, you know, bigger TVs are better for higher resolution. You don't need them as much when you're close. But I feel like when I play games in 4K, I like it better. And I'm sure if I played a bunch of games in 8K, I would like that better too. But sometimes to me, I feel like we're racing to get a higher number rather than like really exploring that space, right? First, like taking full advantage of, I want to take full advantage of 4K. So then when we move to 8K, I can be taking full advantage of 8K for that reason, right?
Yeah. It's like Sony talking about the PlayStation 6 before the PlayStation 5 has even like come out. There's just... There's a whole generation's worth of like advances and stuff that we can still see in 4K.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like God of War doesn't happen at the beginning of the PlayStation 4, right? It happens near the end, right? And I want to see games do that even in the monitor space or even like in what we get from our next gen consoles. 8K is so far down the list of my interest in that thing, and so it is a buzzword. And quite frankly, I wish the publishers or the hardware developers would stop focusing on it.
Yeah, don't play along.
Don't play along.
It almost feels like all these processors are just not readily approachable to like just be like a buzzword. It's like, oh, we have this processor. So this is almost feeling like the 8K or 4K thing is like, oh, is this 8-bit or 16-bit? Like it's something that just immediately rolls off your tongue and you know like, oh, that means it's more powerful because it's 16-bit instead of 8-bit. And it feels like that where it's like, I don't know, it's something that they're focusing on because it's easy to get across.
It is easy to get across, but I often think about 100 Marios, which I know is dumb to say that I often think about 100 Marios. I get.
Think about that every day.
This is a view into Andy's mind that you don't want to see, but I'm going to discuss anyway here for just a quick moment. Is that, like, one of the things I loved about that was, like, everyone was always trying to make the biggest Godzilla and the best-looking Godzilla they could ever make. And my example, which is kind of 100 Marios, that's why I think about it, is that, like, I'm interested not in the biggest Godzilla you can make or the highest resolution 8K Godzilla you can make. What I want to see is a Godzilla that when he hits a building, I see all the glass shadow. I see the people fall out. I see the inside of the building. Like the detail isn't just in the Godzilla. it's in the world that Godzilla's in.
Absolutely.
Right. And like, so I think of 100 Marios because I think about like that the detail in the small items and like how using those small details can bring a new life to that world, that the physics in that building, the interactivity, the AI that's in those characters, like as those things start to go forward, that's where I get excited about where games could go. That these people are falling like, I hate you, Godzilla, like those kind of things, like that exploring into the minutia versus that kind of like larger thing is what interests me.
Yeah.
So whatever, 100 Marios, right? So let's go on.
Launch title. 100
8K.
Marios.
I'm getting an 8K. Like the guy next to me has only got a 4K. I got to get an 8K.
Yeah, it is that race. There's a bit.
That's
It
what it
is a bit of a race. Well, we're getting marketed too. There's certainly that. Hey, GI crew, my first console that I ever had was the original Xbox. I then upgraded to the 360, and then my high school income allowed. Was very happy with it, despite dealing with 2 red rings of death.
Oof.
God, that thing was the worst.
Yikes.
I jumped to the PS4 after the dog's breakfast that was the Xbox One launch. I've never heard of
The
dog's
dog's
breakfast. I
breakfast,
love
yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's
good.
However, I'm now seeing how good the services Microsoft are offering and would enjoy a more powerful console than my day one PS4. This is making me really want to trade in my PlayStation and go back to my first love. Aw. I need to help being convinced that I should wait until the new Xbox drops and not buy a new one right now. So he's saying, stop me from buying Xbox One S, maybe let's say, right?
Sure.
So he can wait for the new consoles. Because this is really the crux of the question is that like we're right on there's a change coming.
Yeah.
Am I crazy for even considering buying a new current gen console with the next gen so close?
I feel like
What? Hang on.
I feel like price would be the only thing that would stop you, right? Like, because you can get an One S for $200 right now, something
Yeah.
like that. So if like budget's the only concern, I mean, yeah, go get an S,
Like,
but
the Series
just-
X is
I want to
going to
interrupt
be
for one
backward
second.
compatible.
By the way, love the show no matter how long the episodes go for. I'm currently backpacking in Southeast Asia, and one of your last episodes kept me company as I struggled to fall asleep on an overnight train in Vietnam.
Wow.
Wow.
We're doing good work.
awesome. Yeah.
All right. Let
I-
no one
I
say
was-
otherwise.
I just want to throw that out there because that's the little bit of color I liked in this
That is
letter that I
Yeah.
think was very so. Thanks, Lackey. And your question is a great one as we kind of near the end. So sorry for the interruption, but I wanted to get.
Speaking of color in the letter, is there something bad about a dog's breakfast? I'm confused because do they have a different breakfast meal that's like perceived as bad?
Would you want to eat a dog's breakfast?
Oh, he's saying that we're eating the dog's breakfast.
He's saying that Xbox ate the dog's breakfast. Microsoft ate the dog's breakfast when it launched. That it wasn't. It
This
wasn't.
is such a weird. Okay, I got it now. Like, okay, they're
I mean,
eating dog food. I got it. Okay.
I like it. I think it's a good.
I
Joe
do
is
too.
on the
I do too.
case.
I've just never heard it before. I
It's a
think
good
it's
turn
really,
of phrase.
I agree. To address the actual question, unless you have cash to burn, just wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the easy answer. That's the one sentence answer. It's coming soon.
You already have the PlayStation 4, so you have
Access to games, yeah.
you have access to all the great multi-platform games. You have access to all the big PS4 exclusives, which you don't get on Xbox. Xbox doesn't have very many big exclusive titles that you absolutely must check out. And even if they do, when Xbox Series X comes out,
You can
play
play
all
them.
of them,
Yeah.
and then get Game Pass then, and you'll get all of them immediately. So wait, 6-7 months.
I agree with both of your takes, but also there's a bit of me that's like a little bit like just follow your passion, and maybe he's played all the PlayStation 4 exclusives already, and like if you got a new Xbox, that you could go play some other games on the Xbox and check out the services and play those things and maybe reignite. And also, too, I think it's very important on the console that you play on that your friends are there for the online stuff.
100%.
That's true.
Do you know what I mean? If he's got a bunch of old friends that maybe kind of reconnect with, that's a cool thing to do.
Was that mentioned in there?
No, but I'm just kind of
Okay.
I'm trying to bring up points. I'm
All
just
right.
saying that
You
like
assume people have friends,
Yeah.
Dan.
I do assume that, but
Okay.
I'm just throwing out other. I'm not really helping with the answer, but I'll say this. Normally, I would say I would follow with you. I'd say no, right? Because it's like, why would you spend? Because I don't think. By the way, this is my own personal taste. I would never buy a used console. I would always buy a new console just because it's a console. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with it.
You get that
yes.
warranty.
And they
You
do
get the
go
warranty.
wrong. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he mentions the 2 red rings of death. Like I would never recommend that, except in this particular window that we're in. Right? You only if you think you're gonna get the new hardware anyway, probably at the end of 2020. If you found a friend, like some kind of like version of it that you could get, you could take a chance. right?
You get a
play
Craigslist Xbox?
Yeah, I'm just saying that's the one time. That's the one time. That's the
I,
one
yeah,
thing I
I
would
just
throw
don't.
out there.
I don't see what
I'm
the
kinda
big
with that.
gain is
That-
for not waiting. If
No, you get to play games.
Yeah,
You get to play games you
with
want
his
to play
friends.
with. Well, maybe with or without friends.
like,
We don't know. But
I wish he would tell. Like, I wish we knew what games he was specifically wanting to play on this. Because if he's like, "Oh, I'm dying to play the new Crackdown," it's like, all right, well then, like, I guess go for it.
But maybe
like,
you'd explore it. Maybe you'd explore it because you don't have Game Pass right now on PlayStation.
Yeah.
Maybe you go on there and maybe you get to go try some things that you wouldn't try. We're probably not helping because we're just throwing out like multiple answers that are both yes and no at the same time.
I'm definitively saying wait.
yeah.
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 Unless money's the issue there. If he just wants something cheap and something he can play now, there are good exclusives on Xbox.
There are,
Yeah.
but also he's saying that he would trade in his PS4 for it, which I think would indicate that he would want to save some money, which you would not do by buying an Xbox now and then maybe in a year or two buying another one.
I don't know. I feel like Andy's right in that this window is so weird to talk about it, though.
Yeah.
because like normally I would also be in the wait category, but I think in this particular case, because there are going to be there aren't Xbox Series X exclusives.
Yeah.
If you buy an Xbox today, you know that at least for the next year or so after the launch of the Series X, you're going to be able to play the new stuff that comes
We
out.
don't know
Yeah,
what
there-
models
Yeah.
though.
There may not be exclusives, but
It-
it's going to run better on
They
them,
might just
so.
be talking
it's
about
gonna run better
Xbox
on
One
it.
X.
It might, but then there's also that immediacy of like think of all of the games that we play in the course of 7 to 9 months.
Here's the thing.
Or an edge case,
if this
though.
was like this, if this was like an impulse immediacy thing, he wouldn't have sent us a letter in about it to wait for
Yeah,
this.
that's true.
Yeah,
I get it. I could totally get like all right, I'll just do it on impulse. I'll trade it in. I'll get it now, and I'll play now. I would totally do something like that. But he's taken the time to send us a letter from Southeast Asia to
being thoughtful.
You're right. It is so weird because like if it were me, if I were in this position, I would wait.
Yeah.
I would too.
Yeah.
That's my vote.
I would keep backpacking in Southeast Asia.
Yeah,
That's
that
what I would
sounds-
keep
But
doing.
I can also
Yeah,
understand.
Maybe he
sounds
wants
better
to
than
harness the
Crackdown
power
3.
of the X on the backpacking trip.
I
all
can,
right.
I can understand why you would not wait if you're just really anxious to, or like really eager to play some of those Xbox One games.
If-
I don't think that's a bad choice either.
Yeah,
If you
it
can't
goes either
wait.
way. It's a little bit of research before you make that big purchase, which will be the next consoles, which will be more expensive. This is your time to go. Maybe I do miss Xbox, and maybe you go check it out, and you go, maybe I didn't. And then
Or-
it makes it clear that you want a PlayStation
Yeah,
5,
that's
or maybe
true.
there's a lot in this question.
There's a lot in this question, and I agree that both answers have merit, and but like he wants to answer one way or the other, right? So I guess
Yeah.
he's got to lean to one
Why
way.
not do
It
it
does-
in between and wait for the reveals of these consoles and then make an informed decision then?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a great.
That's more waiting.
Andy, what's
Yeah, that's
Okay, here we go.
where we're
A
waiting.
dog's breakfast is UK slang. Something or someone that looks extremely untidy or something that is very badly done.
Yeah, right on. Dog's breakfast.
Yeah. What's the gentleman's name who asked the question?
Lachie, Lackey, I believe.
Okay.
Right.
Lackey, if you do get an Xbox, play Sunset Overdrive. That's the only game that matters first. That's my pitch.
The game that
That's the
pretty
pitch,
much
all right.
spawned Spider-Man for Insomniac because
Yeah.
they used a lot of the.
I'm also assuming. I
Similar
think
stuff.
I think that's I don't know if that's a he, she, they. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
It's Lackey.
But thank you, Lackey. That was
Yeah,
great. That was a great.
regardless.
And
We're keeping
and
Lackey up under the stars on that hiking trip. It's great.
the Game Informer podcast is accomplishing its goal when we're putting people to sleep. Did you notice that was the thing? It was a very nice thing. It was like I was struggling to sleep. Your
That-
podcast worked like a
Knocked me
charm.
out,
That
man.
Put me to sleep so fast.
That's the wrong interpretation.
Oh, is that the wrong interpretation?
He's comforted by being around his friends.
Oh, okay.
Talking
Yeah.
about games.
So we're all right. All
we're
right.
a comforting
We'll take
influence,
that.
okay?
I like that.
Lackey wait.
Yeah, it sounds like the panel's on that thing, but you be you.
Yeah,
you
there's
be
not a
you.
wrong
I
answer.
think
Yeah,
there's a wrong
that's
answer.
fine.
But if he wanted to be you, he wouldn't have sent us the
hey, I think we went through the pros and cons and let them make their own decision. But
Exactly.
we
That
sounds
brought
good.
it both. We brought it both.
Yeah.
We brought it both.
Second
and
thought,
all
just
the
pull the
options.
trigger.
Go get a Switch if you're traveling.
there's the answer. Traveling.
Oh, God.
All right, we were just about to move on to the next email.
I've been trying to. Yes.
We don't do that here.
Hello, Andy and the Informants. Recently, I was watching the wonderful Game Informer crew play Journey to the Savage Planet, which we did just this week as a new gameplay today. We did it live, right?
We did.
And we did it live, so it's out
Yes,
there.
we
You can
did.
watch that. And a discussion about trophies and achievements had surfaced and passed rather quickly, which really made Brian angry in the pre-production meeting. He was like, we talked about it on there. So
Yeah.
there is a decent amount of talk about achievements on there. Leo had quickly mentioned he hopes that developers would make these challenges more worthwhile in the next generation of consoles. That being said, what do you all think about what developers could do to make this happen? Me personally, I think that players that have achieved certain trophies in a previous entry of a series could be awarded, i.e. special items in a sequel game. For example, you've played this prequel to its fullest and you have supported the series and the developer since its release are rewarded in the subsequent game. Thanks, I love GI's content in all forms. Keep it up. So should there be more rewards for playing previous games, for getting achievements that happen in the current game, in future games? I think Dan has a hot take on it across the board.
Don't I
right?
always have a hot take? Yeah, I think achievements are bullshit. All right, I think
Oh.
that
Yeah.
First curse we've had this year.
if you want to have an achievement, you take that achievement. That's great. You earned it. That's great. It's awesome. You know that you did it. You did it. I don't need a stupid trophy to do it. I don't need to go around saying, oh, I got this platinum. Whatever. You know what
So
you
what's
did.
your gamer score?
Yeah, exactly. I think that the whole thing is just it's another carrot on the stick layer to keep you engaged with the game.
And what's wrong with that?
Because it's who cares?
It gives you tasks that you
If
can
you
go
achieve
do.
something, you know what you did. You don't need to have a little
But
little
what's the
bell
harm
or-
in it? You can turn notifications off.
What's the harm in it? I don't know.
Exactly.
Guys, it's weird. I turned Dan's mic stopped working. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there.
I think Dan has a great perspective on it. I think there's a real perspective there. I can see why people don't. I mean, there's a lot of games I just ignore them in, right?
Yeah. It's like, oh, cool, I got an achievement. All right,
Here's-
keep going.
I am someone, I don't care about my actual gamer score. I don't know how many platinum trophies I have, but I enjoy the process of getting them, and it's not for this idea of hey, look at what I did, everyone, and pointing to it. What I think trophies and achievements are good for, and what I would like to see in the future developers focus on more, is driving players towards content in a game that they may not explore otherwise. Kinds of things I hate trophies that are just hey, upgrade every weapon. Hey, you completed Act 4.
You did the
Here's a-"
tutorial.
Yeah, don't get rid of that crap. We don't need those trophies. The kinds of trophies that I like are the ones that I mean, this sounds kind of numerical in the same way, but I like the ones that are kill 50 enemies with this weapon. Because if you never use that weapon,
Yeah.
then it's well, to get that trophy, I'm going to have to start using that weapon a little bit. And then suddenly you're like, oh, this weapon's actually pretty cool. Or I didn't know you could use it this way. I like when the trophies sort of are used to guide you towards stuff that you may otherwise have been resistant to check out. Or when it's things find every secret cave in the world. And you're even I only found one secret cave. I didn't even know there were more.
There's secret caves.
I need to go find some secret caves.
Yeah.
That's what I like about trophies.
there
Beat
was
all the
one-
Valkyries.
Well,
beat
Beat all the Valkyries. And there's something about that, I think, that gives me a sense when I play a game and get a platinum that I have seen everything in this game that the developers themselves thought
Was important.
was interesting, important, and worth drawing attention to.
Yeah, I like it too when they do ones that are beat this boss, but with 50 ants up. Do you know what I mean? That you collect, that you have to do something in an interesting way, that ignore this mechanic, beat this boss by doing it this way, that it introduces challenge, that getting the achievement meant you did something special. I beat Donkey Kong the whole time while he was holding the princess, right? Whatever. I don't know what it is. There's a special requirement to get that thing.
And those, I think, are way more interesting than beat the game on normal, beat the game on hard.
Yeah.
Don't make me play through the whole game on different difficulties, but make there be conditions for certain fights that make them harder, but then also encourage players to be oh, how would you even do that without dodging? Maybe if I invested in that ability, that, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
To answer the question, I think the thing that I liked the most that we brought up on the stream was to kind of give you meaningful rewards for these things. So whether it's, you got 1,000 gamer score in this game, that gives you $1 in Microsoft points or something, or, you got 1,000 gamer score in this Assassin's Creed game. In the next Assassin's Creed game, you'll get the outfit of this assassin for your new assassin or something like that.
See, that ends up being, I think that approach ends up being more exclusionary. Like, I like, for instance, the way Assassin's Creed games, the way they handle that currently is
Ubisoft Club.
like, I want to call it Uplay, but they changed the name of it.
Yeah.
So like the Ubisoft Club just detects that you have or have played previous ones and then gives you those rewards for it, right? And you can use points that you've gathered in Ubisoft games to like...
You always have an abundance of Ubisoft points.
Yeah, well,
for sure.
they changed the way it works, so they expire now.
Yeah, I'm actually running pretty low right now.
Yeah, but I like that idea of rewarding players for interacting on that level. I would be super frustrated if I was like a big fan of Assassin's Creed and went into the next game, and because I didn't platinum the last one, because those trophies are typically not fun to get in that series for me, then suddenly it's like, well, there's this cool like costume or cool thing I'm missing out on. And to even make it monetary, I think is even more problematic, because then suddenly, like, I think that adds even more obligation to it. So suddenly trophies aren't as like fun to chase.
Your trophy is that you bought the game.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, they're not as fun to chase, because then you're like, oh, well, I guess if I don't really want to do this, but if I finish this, I'll save $5 on my next game. And so it's like there's such a tangible reward attached to it that
that would be
like, it has the danger of making the game less fun.
If they do the you get a reward in the next game or whatever, they would have to do it in like the easy ones. Like, all right, you completed the game, you get this cool pirate ship in the next game or whatever.
I tend to be more along the lines of, I like it when you get the awards in the actual game you're playing. Like, you know what I mean? That if I did this hard thing, that my sword, I get the flaming sword, right? That would, people in the world would see me running around and go like, oh, he has the flaming sword. That's cool. I know he did that achievement, right? So I think that's interesting. I like those kind of rewards. Like, I tend to agree with you. I don't know that I'm looking for forward ones in a future game. Also, too, I feel like game developers can go look like you can in your PlayStation and go like, I mean, less than 1% or 1% are getting the plat. I mean, it's a very low number.
Yeah.
To create a reward for that 1% seems unnecessary, right? But I like them in games. I don't mind rewarding that 1% to see that person walking around in shimmering, platinum or whatever in game and go, wow, that they platinumed. That's impressive, And if I like the shimmering platinum look they've got, maybe that inspires me to go do it. Which, if in a game I love, I like those kind of inspirations, those checklists. I still feel like WoW is a masterclass on achievements. That they nail things. They give rewards. There's lots of rewards. There's lots of introductions to the things that you wouldn't do. They have the stupid achievements too. Don't get me wrong. But they have a lot of really well thought out achievements. And sometimes ones you get that you're like, what is that? And you're like, whoa, this is a rabbit hole. Oh my gosh. Like I've got like, there's like so many things on this list to get through to get the points up or whatever, or to unlock that thing that you want to get.
It's also, I know the question is like, how do we improve it? Which is why I think we're kind of stretching on it. But I like achievements as they are. I go for them when like they seem reasonable, and I like the little sound and pop up that they make when you unlock it.
I love achievements.
I love
so
slot
much.
machines too. Don't you love spinning those wheels and watching the blinking lights
Hey,
come up?
they're addictive for a reason.
Yeah.
I have notifications for achievements turned completely off.
All right, well,
everything.
I love
Again,
I love
I
hitting
like
the
them.
rare
This is
achievement.
fascinating because you know what's happening, Shay, but you're still...
Yeah, I like it. It's a thing I like.
Okay.
You like stupid games from Software. I like
Oh,
achievements.
wow.
Oh,
Wow, they are not.
You like
stupid
Jank
games
Fest.
from
This is
front.
the
Oh
real...
my
This
gosh.
podcast just got real.
Oh,
no.
man, did it?
Whoa.
Whoa, throwing. Oh my gosh.
had it.
Shay is out
I
of
just
control.
like achievements, damn it.
And no one said you couldn't.
And I mean,
You
they're
did.
there.
You
No,
said
he
get
said
rid of
he-
them.
I didn't.
I mean, I think there's. It is nice that you can turn them off. I think it's one of those things that they annoy me when they're bad, and they're cool when they're like they're clever or funny. Right?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think it's just when they're good, they're good. When they're bad.
Don't do bad achievement.
Yes.
That and make it so they aren't glitched, because that's really frustrating when you do something and it's like, oh, it didn't pop. Why? I did all the stuff. Oh, wait, it's just not popping.
Yeah, but I mean, I want games to not be buggy. Yeah, I mean, I think we all do. I mean, games are going to have bugs, things that you're going to run into,
Of
and
course.
achievements
Yeah.
are in a game. They're going to be a part of that. You're going to encounter that. It's certainly frustrating when those things happen, when you do the thing and it doesn't work. But I mean, I feel like there's dailies and other things like that happen in a lot of games that don't work. that have more like experience rewards and other things like that that actually matter in moving forward in the game.
Yeah.
But achievement talk's fun.
Usually.
We lost a good water bottle.
I mean, I didn't think anyone would get that mad talking about achievements, but
I will say quickly before we move on, I would love if Microsoft adapted what Sony does with trophies, where it takes a screenshot. I like that.
I do
like
like
a little
that, yeah.
commemorative piece.
Except
Yeah.
so often the screenshot it takes is just like a black screen.
Yeah,
right?
there's
Like,
sometimes where it's bad. Where
hey, you completed this chapter.
God,
Fade out. Take a picture. Nice work.
Yeah,
It's
it
like-
needs to be instant, but
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm also pro monetizing it, even in like a gold points way that Nintendo does. I think it's a smart system, and I would like to see that. So moving on.
yeah, I mean, you definitely can make it where you're working towards something in the larger space. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
agree with that.
Even
I
like
would agree.
avatar items, if you even care about that.
Like a month of Xbox Live, like something like that.
Something
I guess that for
inconsequential.
me, I get where you're coming from, Joe, but that doesn't take it away.
I mean,
the enjoyment for me.
If there's something on a meta level for it, I guess I could see like if you can trade it in for some sort of account style stuff. But like if you attach a dollar amount to it, I think that is something that starts to feel very gross.
and almost inevitably leads to that too. Like over time, that
Yeah.
like if someone can get it with points, then they gotta make it where someone can buy it with money.
Yeah.
and it heads down that path, and it heads down that path too of, sometimes, especially, I hate it when achievements are necessarily like required to. And I'm just pointing this out is that like when there's a small team making a game, that like I want them to make the game better. You know what I mean? I want them to finish the game. I want the game to have all the parts. I don't like if you don't want to do achievements, don't waste your time with achievements. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
sometimes too, that's why I think we get the bad ones is that they're like, we have to do these. Let's just get it over with.
Yeah.
I turn the game on. You turn the game off. Platinum, right? You know what I mean?
200
Like,
points for winning an online match.
like where they just kind of like gloss it over. Like that's a waste of time. That's a waste of like someone could have done effort to make the UI better, to make the game better. So I don't like it when it's taking away.
no achievements are better than bad achievements.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. What's up, GI crew? An inquiry, if you will. Open world games these days are jam-packed with things to do, but not every task is a home run. My question is, what mission types or objectives do you usually skip in an open world game? For instance, I loathe racing side missions. They feel so tacked on, are typically uneventful and uninspired. Sound off. By the way, Andy, you speak fine. Don't let them get you down. From Frank. Frank from Augusta, Georgia.
This actually comes perfectly from like our discussion about what achievements we go for and which ones we don't. So
It's almost like I put these down in an
wait
order.
a second.
Look at that.
Do you know what you're doing?
Wow,
These are just
it's just weird.
the order they came in. I thought.
I might work on this a little bit, just a little bit.
A variation on the racing one is anything that is like it timed from point A to point B.
Yeah,
Right?
that's mine
Like,
too.
I hate the things that are like start on this rooftop and get over to that rooftop and hit these like pass through these glowy gates along the way.
Especially when you've
time.
never seen it before, you're like, I'm gonna totally fail this and have to do this twice.
because
Yeah.
you owe at least twice.
Yeah.
I just hate that stuff.
Specifically,
Yeah.
Crackdown. I avoided those like the
Yep.
plague.
Similarly, the pigeon missions in Spider-Man, I did not do a single one of those.
I liked the pigeon missions actually. Weird.
Yeah, I did not enjoy those at all.
I like it when I do like it when you can avoid something, like when you can make that choice. I think there are open world games sometimes where I'm playing them where I'm like, I have no choice. I have to do this race. You know what I mean? Like it's not a choice. That it is something that I have to get through to move the story forward. And those are really like annoying. In particular, I think this racing example is great. One of the things that drives me crazy is when I'm like, I bought, and when this goes to an earlier question, like I bought this shooter. This shooter is great. Here's the vehicle mission. I hate vehicles.
Oh, yeah.
Like this whole mission. It's not even like a choice. That this level is me doing this, and there's no way around for me to just go, look, I thought I was buying a different game. Neat. I'm glad you threw that in. But you just put a huge blocker in the way for me as a gamer that I don't like, that I want to deal with, that I have to deal with. Especially too, because a lot of times, and I think this is especially true in open world games, where you're like, you want me to race? Then maybe make a game that can race worth a crap. Because 9 times out of 10, the racing mechanics are awful. The way that the track is laid out is awful, and they don't work very well. And it's just kind of like you just, to your point earlier, you bash your head against it until you break through the wall.
Yeah, if you're gonna put in that kind of side content, I think it should just be very easy.
Yeah.
Or by default easy, and you can make it harder if you want.
Yeah.
But like, don't make
Through achievements?
Don't make players have to do that dumb asteroid section in Dead Space.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah,
So
like,
awful.
Like it's a survival horror game, and then there's just this unreasonably difficult shooter segment, just sort of right in the middle.
I mean, it spawns the whole discussion of like sections in games that just are nothing to do with the main game, and I always hate those. Like the Krill mission in Gears of War 1, where you're driving on the back of the tank, you have to shine the flashlight at the bats that come and kill you if you don't hit them with light. Like sections like that just drive me insane.
Yeah, I think I like to agree. I hate to go completely binary on it because every once in a while you're like, oh, cool, I'm on the back of this thing, and I'm like every once in a while someone will pull it off, and I'll be like, that was really great, but I would definitely say it probably fails. It fails more than it succeeds.
Yeah. I guess that's why I'd say that's why my go-to is make it easy on that, because like I think those little change-ups in gameplay can be really refreshing and interesting, and like the change-ups are good. It's when they frustrate or interrupt the flow to the point that the player is just obligated to do something that they did not sign on for.
Yeah, or if you do something like that, I'm a big proponent of tailoring the game to the player. Like if you do a section like that, spend the extra time to be like, okay, look, they failed it 3 times. We're gonna notch back the difficulty a little bit, or give them an extra missile, or you know what I mean, or the cooldown on their gun is gonna goes a little bit further. It can be invisible. It doesn't have to do, because it's always embarrassing. Like some games when they'll go like, we see you're failing this a lot. Do you want to turn down the difficulty? And you're like, no, I hate you. You know what I
It's
mean?
the most
Like
condescending stuff.
It
I
is
hate it so much.
you're just like, it's horrible. But if like it kind of happened in the background, they're like, we're gonna make it a little bit easier. This part, we knew we added this in. We knew this was a curveball in the game. Let's just let these people get past this and move on. You know, like
Maybe a good example of this, Joe, as someone who has gone through this, chocobo racing and or lightning dodging in Final Fantasy X.
But those are all extra stuff, like post game, right?
You don't have
But
to do those.
he's asking like side quests and stuff.
No, I'm not saying side. I'm saying things that interrupt the main flow of the game. And side quests are completely. I want the Ultima weapons, right? Like I want them to be ridiculously hard. I like those like weird. I don't want those to change, but those didn't stop me from playing the game.
Yeah.
Right. I want the things that literally become roadblocks in a game.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I mean, wasn't
go away.
the original question was based around side content, right?
Well, yeah, no, but we got off topic. I don't know if you've been to the Game Informer show before, but we get off.
I was trying to
topic.
steer the ship back on course.
But yeah,
Let's leave that to the host, though.
All right, I'll shut up.
But I think there's a lot in there. I think like anyone, like when they're like collect 10 of these, I always like roll my eyes, but I do them anyway, right? I mean, I think no one's thrilled they have to kill 10 rats. Be more creative in your side missions in your games. But sometimes too, those can be great too. Especially when it's like they give you that mission and then they become creative with it. I think Rockstar does a good job of that. They're like, hey, I need you to go get that. And you're like, another fetch quest. This is, oh my God, we got taken. Oh, now I'm on a train ride. And when it's the unexpected, those are truly great. And I don't want to stop that. But I think that's a different point.
No more rooftop races.
Yeah, rooftop races. Oh God. Next question. How is it doing, Dandy Andy and the GI Max? Apparently, we are like a 50s.
Crooner.
Doo-wop
Well, I mean, I
band.
liked
that.
Andy and the Informants.
That was good.
Jonah Gomez here from Ridgefield, Washington. I was wondering what was the first game that made you cry or extremely emotional. The one game that got me was Valiant Hearts. The ending had me sitting there crying my eyes out, and my wife laughed at me. Yeah, I've been there, done that. Keep up the good
Sure,
work,
that
Andy.
ruined the moment.
Keep up the good work, Andy, and bring back the long podcasts. P.S. Could you give a shout out to my boy Wes in California? Wes,
what up?
Yeah, Big Wes.
Thank you for the thing. So, I think there was a long time where I said I would never cry in a game, and then I cried in a game. It happened to me. I think it happened. I think it's happened as the medium has grown and gotten better. I don't think it's something to be embarrassed about. I do think it's something wives will mock us for, and significant others will, and friends maybe will too, and that's part of the fun. But I don't
And
think
readers and listeners and...
Hey, there's no reason to be ashamed. It happens, right? I mean, like, I tell you, just to point out, like, I know that stupid Spider-Man story over and over again, but every time, like something happens that I know is going to happen in the Spider-Man universe, I always get a little misty. Right? It works. It works. But games. So what games make you cry? If they make cry, Dan's going to be like, I never cry.
No, I have one, but I'm trying to think of the first one because that's what specifically asked the first one, and I have no idea when that was.
Yeah, I mean,
I can think of a recent example.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, Infinite Warfare at the end.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
got
can see
me.
why. It didn't get me, but I could see why it would.
Yeah.
It was
Touching.
and again, I think that it's not. It's good if you do because that means that the game had elicited an emotional response from you.
Of course.
So you became invested in the game, in the world, and that's when the developers have done something right. There's no
agree.
doubt.
For me, the two that immediately come to mind are oddly both zombie games. So, end of the
That says
first season
something.
of The Walking Dead, the whole Lee Clementine thing.
Oh yeah.
And then the beginning sequence of The Last of Us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Those scenes just wrecked me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I we did a video with former intern Nick Straub where I rewatched that scene and I was like bracing myself.
It's rough.
'cause It's so good, but it's brutal.
Yeah. Turns out Naughty Dog knows how to craft a story.
Yeah, one or two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think back to I don't know. I think I'm just a little bit of a robot. I don't know that I have a lot I don't know specifically. I don't remember a time that I've actually just been sitting there crying.
So do you cry in a movie? Like, did you watch the opening to Up?
Yeah, see, I didn't cry during that. Though,
Really?
Weirdly
I thought
enough,
I was the robot
Like
here.
Toy Story 3.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
no.
my
Again, these are emotionally
Yeah.
affecting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's usually that doesn't manifest as crying.
Did you cry at your wedding?
No.
Okay.
Well,
What about Rocky 4?
okay.
I mean,
but
we already determined Up wasn't on the
No,
table. That means
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's
Yeah.
just like
I did at my wedding, but the most
So that's the line.
but here's the other stupid thing.
And
is
the new Star
okay,
Wars movie too,
so,
right?
So maybe for a different reason. And I was at I turned 40 recently, and for my birthday, my wife gave me a year of Disney Plus, which I'd been sort of I don't need another streaming service. We'll be okay. And we started watching not The Mandalorian.
But Herbie the Love Bug?
No, there's a show. What is it called? Pick of the Litter. It's about service dogs. It's about dogs going into training to be seeing eye dogs. And
Oh no.
the second episode of this, I was crying just to prove I'm not a total robot
Yeah,
here.
okay.
Because the second episode of the show is basically all of these people who'd had these dogs since they were puppies for 18 months. And then they have to give the dogs back.
Oh, my God.
So they can go through formal training after being raised.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So the whole second episode was just this parade of tears for my wife and I because it's all these people who are like, "You're such a good boy. You've been so good. We'll see you. We know you're gonna do great." And then they walk out and they're bawling and okay.
So we know the secret to Joe's heart
no,
is
it's
dogs.
dogs.
it's
Yeah.
basically
Yeah.
it's basically
Yes.
dogs. But what I'll say back to the games.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the games that have been the most emotionally affecting for me have been I remember getting real close at the end of Metal Gear Solid 4, which I know some people think is kind of stupid and hokey, but there's this one scene where Sonny is asking Otacon where's Snake? And Otacon's like, Snake's had a hard life. And in the moment, in that context, I was like, yeah, he has, man. He
Yeah, it's because
really
you've
has.
watched all those movies and you too had a hard life.
So that's one. And then another one that really got to me was the end of the original Life is Strange.
Okay, yeah.
Because there's this sort of sense of, again, there's a sense of sacrifice, death in sacrifice, I think is a button for me.
Yeah.
The end of Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core, which I actually won't talk about now because we're so close to the remake that it might actually spoil some things for people. But there's the ending of that. If you've played the original FF7, the end of Crisis Core, which is the PSP action RPG, portrays a scene that you know, if you've played FF7, is just inevitable. You know what happens.
Yeah.
But seeing it happen the way it unfolds was a very
Though
sort of emotional
we may not
day.
be very close to that scene,
but-
seeing as how.
But they might.
multiple
That's the thing.
parts.
It's like I have no idea how they're gonna slice up that story.
I mean, when
Yeah.
they're saying the game's going to be so much longer, there's going to be a lot more opportunity, I think, to
Yeah.
develop characters, and hopefully they're going to apply some new things.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think unlike Warcraft that we talked about earlier, I like it when they take chances on those redo, and they're obviously taking a huge chance on Final Fantasy
Yeah.
VII, and we liked Resident Evil 2, where they really changed the game as well. So.
So Andy, tell your eco story.
Yeah, it's eco. It's totally eco. Eco was the first one that got me. I don't want to ruin it, but when you play the game and you get to the end, there's a closing scene that's there that it hit me. Do you know what I mean? Like it totally crushed me. And then the other one is, I always bring it up is just the Brothers, the Brothers game.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
another one.
That game absolutely crushed me. I'd actually lost my brother around that time that I played the game, and it was just like, whew,
Yeah.
man. I mean, like that game. Let's put it this way. This is like the same thing too. I'll never play that game again because I know it will crush me like that. I just can't go through it again.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad I did it. I can't do it again. But it's the other thing too when you talk about movies. When I see was it like Marley and Me or something like that? When it's like golden retriever person, that dog's
Yeah.
going down. Like it's literally the cover. I'm like, I'm never watching
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
movie.
This
ever.
is just manufactured for tears.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not happening because I'm with you, Joe. Like dogs, I
The
love
dogs are real-
Yeah,
like-
it gets me. It's
Like
just,
you really have to warn me if when I
There's that website, right?
when I sat down to is there
Like, does the dog die or something like that?
okay yeah
You
because
can
like,
look up a movie or a TV show.
when I sat down to watch John Wick, it was with former game.
Oh, no.
Former Game Informer editor Jeremy Zoss. He and I were watching John Wick, and he warned me ahead of time because I think he knew that this would be a thing. He's like, "Look, gonna tell you now, the dog's gonna die." And I think that you'd want to be warned about that. And it actually made it a lot easier for me to enjoy the movie because I just
It
wasn't.
still hits me hard, though.
I wasn't stressing about it. It's just like, okay, makes sense.
spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the entire.
And it's been a meme too. I think for a while now. So it's been out
I,
there
uh,
in the
Yeah.
Yeah. What do
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm such an emotional sap. Like I'll watch movies with my girlfriend, and I'll be the one crying, and she's just not fazed by anything. But for games wise, Gears 2, Dom and his wife really broke me apart. I was also.
I
like,
thought that
yeah.
was so poorly executed.
see,
it didn't get me at all.
It tore me to pieces. Little Al. I can't remember when that game came out, but and then Mass Effect 2, the suicide mission. Not all of my crew made it, and it really hit me in the emotional gonads.
They do a really good job of
Yeah.
making you attached to those characters, so I could see
Yeah.
why.
I think it was Samara who didn't make it.
Oh, see, for me, the Mass Effect moment would be assuming Morden makes it all the way to the third game.
Oof, yeah.
He again,
Yeah.
there are different permutations about how this can play out, but there's a particularly heart-wrenching scene with Morden in Mass Effect 3 if he makes it that far.
Yeah, and that's another.
Yeah.
That's yep. Oof. Not gonna think about that.
I actually
Yeah.
just got like, ooh,
Yeah,
shivers.
man.
That
The
was a good
board
scene.
short-circuiting because his tears are falling in between.
We'll just call that the cry cam, the one that's in the booth there.
I saw your tweet the other day. It had the suicide mission that we did in the magazine
Yeah.
10 years ago. That was really cool.
Yeah.
I was like, oh wow, look at that piece. I'd forgotten about it, and so
Yeah.
that was a neat reminder.
Yeah, I posted this. This was Mass Effect 2 recently turned 10 years old.
Yes.
So yeah, I posted that old flowchart that just has talks about all of the different ways that suicide mission plays out.
God, it's so good. You know what makes me cry now? That we don't have a freaking remake of that thing. Give us what we want.
I had someone sent me a very nice, thoughtful letter that he said, don't read it on, but send it to podcast@gameinformer.com. That was just like, here's how I'd make a really cool Mass Effect game. And I was like, I'm down. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is cool. You know what I mean? But definitely just I think people are out there and they want it. I hope we get it. Or even to,
Was it Casey Hudson who sent
no,
you
it
the
was
letter?
not. But, and this totally has nothing to do with that, but I want to bring this up. I started watching The Expanse last night.
Oh, I've heard great things.
I've heard
about
really
that.
good things
Yes.
about that, too.
It's really good. And the thing is, too, for me, at least, I've watched 3 episodes, and I should not, by the way. I should have gone to bed after 1, and I watched 3. And this is just my kind of quick little thing, like, because we're talking about Mass Effect, and I think it's kind of good, is that right away I was like, oh, this is an interesting person. Oh, they're going to be, and they were like, they were making choices in this sci-fi show pretty quickly about like people and who was going to make it through and not make it through, which I think is one of the things that made Mass Effect have weight.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that it brought weight to this TV show to me very quickly. So I'm really in on it. So like, I that's the thing. Maybe they don't make more Mass Effects, but more games with weight. This also, I think, brings up the crying thing a little bit.
Yeah.
It makes a difference.
Yeah.
It makes a difference. It makes the game more compelling. It makes it mean more than a cha-ching! You finished the tutorial, right? That means something.
Stop coming for my achievements, man.
No, we're trying to push achievements to be better. To be better.
I don't
or
have
when
any
you
more
do
water
them, make them
bottles to throw.
matter. I think that's the thing is make it matter. Right? That's the statement I think we're trying to make in all things here is make it matter. One other quick comment. Andy, I think you mispronounce. Just
That's a
kidding.
good one. I
But
like
thank
that
you,
one.
Nate. I liked that one. That one made me laugh. And also, too, one of the people that I brought up last week that had said that, he'd sent me a note and he said, "I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to rip on you. I was just trying to do that." So people were nice
What a
about
sweetie. You mispronounce?
it. No, I didn't. That was the joke. People give me grief for the way I say things. And people were very nice. I just wanted to follow it up this week because people sent me a bunch of nice notes, and I wanted to make sure that I got the notes. I appreciate it. I'm still a moron. I still make a bad podcast.
No.
You're
Oh,
here.
Andy, come on, you're doing great,
come
buddy.
On. I'm not. I don't want compliments. They don't work for me. It's not. This is.
just
I
don't
feel
like
like
'em.
this is your bit. It's not my bit. This is just like. Let me live.
Andy, do you
let
need
me
a
let
hug?
me live my way.
At some point, you just say things a certain way, and I know that you have a few words like that, and I don't really even like notice anymore. It's that's just how it
thankfully,
goes.
I
it's
still
just-
notice.
It happens. Yeah, people still notice, and it happens. It's fine. I don't mind. I can't watch my own shows. People are like, "Hey, do you want to watch the edit of that?" I'm like, "No, I don't want to see it." Do you want to listen to your podcast? No, I don't want to listen to my podcast. I'm an idiot. Everything I say is stupid. Like that's where I live. I don't mind doing them. They're fun to do, but I hope you enjoy them. But in my view, from my perspective, I'm like just a weird artist. Every piece of art I make is garbage. Right?
That's how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like that's just me. That's my artist. That's me. Right? That's the way I look at things.
Similar for me, only it's everybody else saying it.
Oh.
Oh, no.
Come on. So we've been working on this town,
GI Town.
GI Town, and we've done a lot of things, a lot of top fives, things that we do. And this one's people. I got a lot of comments this week, and it happened. It was like in a row, emails that were like, "You need a hospital. You need a hospital. Like, how do we heal things? How do we make things better? What is like?" Someone asked like, "What were the best control schemes in games that don't make your hands hurt?" Which I thought was funny.
Hold on. Joe, were you looking at the bookshelf to try to come up with ideas?
Yes.
I do that every week. When this question is asked every time.
I mean, like I look around at the covers we have on the
Yep.
walls.
Yeah,
and
always.
I'm like,
Single
yeah.
time.
I mean, I have some ideas. I just
So I think overall, so like the idea is like this
Hold
is the
on,
hospital.
I haven't got to the question. So like, but it's just been it was a theme that came through. Like we got a lot of like that were just in like what was the best healing items in games. So what we do is we pick like a top five. We created 5 things. Like we did a haircut place where we don't have all the haircuts. We have the 5 video game haircuts that we offer. And in this case. Our new hospital take, the one that I liked out of the 3 questions that came along this line, was this one. I am a longtime listener, first-time emailer. I've been enjoying the top 5 GI neighborhood. So here's my attempt at adding a new commercial property. Welcome to the Game Informer Surgical Office, the best video game body part modifications around. If you are looking to replace that phantom pain with a bionic arm or maybe the Jensen
Nice.
full body treatment, GIS is the place. What video game body augmentations or body part replacements are in the GI Surgical Office top 5? Love the show, Sean from Jacksonville, North Carolina.
So can we just assume this is like the Grand Theft Auto hospital where anything is possible, where your body could just get completely destroyed and you just wake up outside the hospital like, oh, I'm better.
Yeah, I mean, we're living in fantasy land right now.
Okay.
I mean, we're making a fantasy world. This is what we're doing.
it seems like the goal of this hospital isn't getting healed. It's to like cybernetic augmentation.
Yeah, this is
kind
a
of
hospital.
stuff.
Like, we don't care if you're hurt. There's plenty of like health things out
Yeah,
there.
just-
What we're here
it's
is
true.
we're
Go-
just
go
all
pick up
very
a me-
affordable too.
Go pick up a med kit.
yeah. This is just like we can offer we want business. We want people to come to GI Town. Like we
Yeah.
want them to come to our property. So we need to offer really cool, really fun augmentations that will, for the right price, give to anyone that visits our town. So
I feel like we'll have some pretty good answers for once Cyberpunk comes out, but pre-Cyberpunk,
Yeah.
we'll see.
I mean, they're not the first Cyberpunk game. There's been plenty.
No.
Okay, so does anybody have a augmentation that we'd like to offer in our surgery house?
Should we just get Bionic Commando's arm?
Yeah, I
out
think
of
we
the way?
should. I think we
That's
should.
a good one.
All right.
It's a very easy one.
I mean, it's nice to be like, oh, I want that book from that shelf.
Yeah.
I want to go up on that ledge. Like whatever you want to do.
helpful.
It's all right there.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, they brought it up. They brought it up in the letter, but the Phantom Pain rocket arm is a pretty cool one.
You like the rocket arm, huh?
Yeah.
Though I guess I wonder, do you do the Phantom Pain rocket arm or the Devil May Cry 5 rocket arm, which you can actually jump on and kind of surf with?
We're gonna have a lot of arms on here because I was gonna bring up Sekiro's arm, which
All
also
the
has
arms,
multiple
yeah.
functionality.
Yeah.
I mean, arms are a good choice because they, you can do things with them.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not necessarily surgery, but do we consider plasmids? They modify your body from Bioshock.
I think it's got to be surgery.
Okay.
I mean, is it surgery when you take a thing and you you kind of you inject it, right?
I feel like
Surgery is an invasive maneuver.
I feel
correct?
like we don't want to do something it's not a mod, it's not an augmentation if it's only happening at a chemical level. I think
Okay,
we need
yeah, I think that's fair.
I think we need foreign non-organic material involved.
What about
We'll say the bee plasmid has you have the little hives coming out of your hands. Just saying.
yeah, you do have bees flying out of your hand. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What about the exoskeleton from Death Stranding to do more Kojima, to be able to lift more things, move
Yeah.
faster? That seems like a cool thing to have. I can think of a lot of applications in my life where having an exoskeleton that makes me run faster, jump higher,
And
carry
carry it-
more things.
Yeah.
Carry
Seems
more
like
FedEx
man.
packages.
Everyone
seems like cool.
if you have that and a pickup truck, you will be asked to help everyone move.
Yeah.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah.
But I mean, you'll also be like, I got it. I mean, you're that's the fun part, right?
Yeah, but there's your whole Saturday, though.
But I mean, does that also begs the question? If it's an exoskeleton kind of thing, could you do a whole? I mean, could you be like Iron Man?
That's not a surgery,
I think
though.
that he
has the heart.
Aside from the arc reactor in his chest, yeah, the
That
suit
counts?
itself.
That counts, right? That's,
I mean, giving a superpower source to everyone seems like a good aug to give somebody.
Yeah.
The
okay.
suit itself, I would say, is
So
not a
here's-
surgery.
that's powered by the arc, but
Here's one. So I've been replaying Chrono Trigger.
Okay.
And early on in Chrono Trigger, you meet a guy named Johnny. He's in the future. And Johnny looks like a dude, except he can also transform into a jet bike.
yep,
Which
That
is a
seems
transformer.
cool.
that is the thing that happens in that game.
That you then have to race against to get across some old
Of
futuristic
course you have to
road.
race.
Oh, the racing
Yeah.
stuff.
Which is, I think, hands down the worst part of that whole game. But I think that idea is kind of cool because when he comes onto the screen, he's sort of rolling in his human form, but then he can and sort of. I say rocket bike transformation is a good augmentation.
I would agree. I would agree.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate
Putting
that
your
part of the game, but yes.
Just from a purely.
Yeah.
Putting transportation built into you makes it easy. You don't have to look
Yeah.
for parking.
Oh yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Anywhere you go, you just roll up. What up? Transform. You're good.
I really like this idea a lot more. You save so much money on car payments.
Yeah, I mean this is a good thing. And I mean if you came to our place and you could have a Sekiro arm here,
Yeah.
a Bionic Commando arm here,
You could do anything.
Choose.
be able to turn into a scooter, I guess, whatever, a jet bike,
Yeah, yeah.
and have exoskeleton legs. I mean, the only thing we're really missing is we need a head mod.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
We
need
got
a head
everything
mod.
Are there
else.
any
I
good
feel like
ones
we've got
for
everything else. Well, what's a
Adam
head
Jensen?
mod?
We haven't talked about Adam Jensen yet.
We
I haven't played that game in so long. I don't know what was the good stuff to get for him.
I feel like there should be an eye. We were talking about this earlier, an eye mod, something that lets
Yeah.
you
Just
like
detective
Terminator,
vision.
kind of go are you John Connor? That I can scan things and learn
I mean,
things.
Batman's detective vision is kind of like that. It's like glasses that he wears.
But there's
right?
no surgery
Yeah.
involved with that.
Well, but it could. There could be. In
We
the
could
same
make
way.
that change.
In
Yeah,
the same way
because-
that the exosuit, instead of saying you just put it on, just say okay, you just bolt it to.
I mean, detective vision is such a gaming thing at this point that if we offered a detective vision eye implant, I don't think anybody would be like, "Oh, that's out of place."
But
in the
we have
GI.
to have
Yeah.
have basis for it, right? In the
somewhere
gaming
in the
world?
gaming world. Yes.
I mean, that's what we're saying. It's
gotta be
Batman's
somewhere.
detective vision just implanted in your eyes.
I don't think that's good enough.
okay.
Especially if Plasmin's got shot down. I'm gonna
Especially,
say
I
boo
feel
to
like
that,
there's got to be. We're missing something. There's
There's-
got to be one that has like a
There's
laser
going to be
beam
a
in the
super
eye.
obvious
Like, there's gotta
ocular
be, like,
implant, right?
Yeah, there's got to be one.
Like,
There has to
like
be one.
Cyclops, but like implanted.
We just can't think of it. I mean, we're gonna ruin.
There's got to be a villain with like a laser eye in a Japanese game. Come
Yeah,
on, there's got to
something
be
somewhere. It's like they can do the detective stuff and do a weird laser beam, right? Like that's what we're looking for. We want the information plus that next level of being dangerous as well. But maybe we have to go with Batman's. Though Batman's,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
like
kind
it's
of a
in video
cop-out, but-
games.
but
and
if we can't think of
he's
anything-
not from the video game universe originally.
Sure.
Which is a little bit of that. You know what we could? It could be on this thing would be web slingers. That I mean, at some point, like you could put them inside.
Could,
And
right.
you could use that as transportation. Is that cooler than a jet bike?
No.
No, jet bike.
Jet bike's pretty cool. I mean, okay, let's do it. Let's because we need to make some decisions.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
We need to keep this thing moving forward. Mm-hmm. I like the idea that everything comes together. You have the bionic arm, that you have the weapon arm from Sekiro, you have the exoskeleton legs,
And you can transform into a jet
and you
bike.
can transfer a jet bike.
It's pretty good.
I'm gonna look
And
this up.
I mean, because like we're not trying to sell you once. We're trying to upsell you. Like we want someone comes in and be like, I think I want the Sekiro arm. Like, let me tell you,
You can get the whole package.
you get the whole package, right?
I like this.
Tell ya.
And then the final one being Batman Detective Vision. And even though it could be glasses, the way Batman does it, we're gonna just sew them to your head so you don't lose them. Because everyone loses their sunglasses. We solved that problem.
That's one way to do it.
We've done it. We fixed it. Right?
I'm not going to cry foul on that. That sounds right.
That's a good top five.
We'll roll with it. But I feel like there's got to be some really great example that we're missing.
We have.
Comments are gonna let us know on this.
They
one.
are going to let
they
us
will.
know.
Apparently,
They're
there
gonna
is
let us
a visual prosthetic in Deus Ex.
You're not giving up on this day.
What some
Who
colloquial
cares?
call a bionic eye.
Perfect.
Yeah,
That's
whatever.
it.
Let's do Batman.
Let's do the Batman glasses.
right.
Permanently put on your head because people lose their sunglasses.
I'm
So
with-
I like that
I'm with
solution.
Shay.
I think that's good. But so, and by the way, our little town is an amazing place.
It
I just want to
really
say
is.
you can get
a
so many
museum where
things
monsters
there.
can kill you.
And it's maybe the 500th episode, as we mentioned earlier. Maybe that's we figure out what are the top 5 buildings in our town.
Maybe we actually go to a museum and we do it there, podcasting from an
echoey.
actual museum.
From an actual museum or an actual barbershop.
Before we're
At an
asked to
actual
leave.
hospital, I hope not.
Or just do it on top of Mount Rushmore. We can just get up there, right?
Yeah, we can just get.
Yeah.
We've got everything here in GI town. We don't even have a name for it. We have to do more work on this. We probably could do more work on this across the board.
I think we're doing a lot of work on this every week.
Well, as long as people enjoy it, we'll keep doing it. As long as we keep coming up with like halfway decent ideas, we'll follow down that path of doing something silly. So thanks everybody for listening. It's fun as always to do.
So much fun.
Thank you guys for coming. Appreciate you coming and being guests on the show. We had a good time. Like, subscribe, all those things on your favorite thing that you use.
Smash that bell, baby.
That you
Smash
do
that
things on
bell.
Smash your favorite thing.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends. If you like the show, do that.
Go to your favorite thing to see our thing and do the thing that benefits us.
Send your questions to podcast@GameInformer.com. Thank you for listening, watching, whatever your favorite flavor of the GI show is. Thank you all for coming on, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.